No, I just moved it over there if somebody wants it.
Daryl, there's a chair.
Probably gonna talk about this. Mr. J.
Yeah, you can move it wherever you want. I just pulled it out. People move things. You're good thing Yeah, I know.
Together.
We have some chairs. You want this one?
Well, is there more chairs?
Yeah, I'll give you mine too. There isn't any more.
You go ahead, I'll stand with you.
Would you take my chair, Miss? So, your husband can stand next to you. Take a chair. My mom would kill me if she found out a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. You need us to do those chairs next time? Oh my gosh, you guys. You're lucky I can't see you.
Their legs get tired.
And where? Yeah, that's what I'm Is before Buttercup? No, Buttercup and then Canadian. So you're in the sign a table.
Yeah, I'll sign your case there. Carolyn said to sign in.
Oh.
Sign in.
No, I didn't. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I know.
You the last
I had.
You have to sign here. The last time I didn't have a word they say, and then you reversed it. And when I reversed it, it didn't back to me. You're gonna have to be separated. Yeah. Sorry about that.
So yeah, this is.
After the situation, or if it goes back to consistency. Because this is.
They are, when it was going up, I thought it was really, and I asked him.
Fine, yeah, just check the box. Way too big for it.
And so you probably just need to distinguish if they want to. Oh, so for, if they want to do.
Just right for you. Change that. Not saying you did
It
it.
matters which place that they put their comments.
Because they get two opportunities, right?
Yeah, but they should not be commenting on the case in general public comments.
And I want to.
First.
Yeah. Subdivision.
Was that discount for it? Sure that
Yeah. That's our place, but I just can't get it to recognize that camera back there again.
Oh.
Yeah,
I can't help you with that.
yeah. I don't know. It was working this morning. Huh? I'll flip it around so they see you guys. Nobody wants to see.
One question.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Well, we kind of looked at that. And we
Maybe I can set up.
And we're worried this summer about.
What's that?
I'll either say yes or no.
I'm not
It is
sure.
still
I'm not sure, but it would have been so.
You ready? Sharon, you ready? Let the meeting begin. And Petra, are you ready?
When they say that.
All right. I bring the city council meeting to order on Wednesday, March 19th, 2022 at 7:02 PM. We are providing in-person and virtual option for this meeting. And I would like to go ahead and make a roll call, please, of all council members.
Nadine here.
Potter here.
Ask you here.
Uchari here.
Chief's here too. All right, so we're going to start with the public hearing. I want to kind of clarify for the public hearing and with the upcoming public comment period that will be after that. The public hearing portion, you'll get an opportunity to share your opposer or support of the item in question. For land use items only. Public comment will be for any other city concerns that you might have. Okay, but it will not be about what we're doing in public hearing. So the two of them will not cross over, just so you know. We'll go ahead and start with calling for any abstentions. Is there anybody that needs to, any council members that need to abstain from opinion or vote from the hearing? Not hearing any, we will move on. All right, we'll go ahead and start with a staff report. Walt. Walt, are you available online? If you are, please unmute yourself. All right, I will go ahead and start the public hearing by saying the public hearing is for consideration of the appeal of Planning Commission's denial of the SDV 21-1. And we'll go ahead and let our proponents begin with the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. City Councilors, I'm Mark Twait of Sherman, Johnny and Twait. I represent the developers, Steve Ryan and Jake Lucy, regarding this project. I'm just going to speak to you very briefly about process, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lucy, who has a lot of detailed information regarding the project and why they believe, we believe that the evidence supports the city council allowing this project to move forward. As I'm sure you all know, as city councilors today, you sit in judgment of the evidence before you. And in fact, you are sitting as judges in this matter. And so you're going to hear a lot of testimony tonight that is very real, very legitimate, and probably emotional regarding the city's water shortages that occurred last year. That's very real. We respect that very much. We wouldn't be here if we thought that this project would somehow jeopardize the water of the city, of the citizens of Yamhill. Before this project moved forward, the developers met with the city. The city raised no concerns regarding water supply on this matter, or the project would never have gotten off the ground. So it was not, this is not something that was pushed forward without consultation or without consideration. So tonight, as you hear those very real concerns that we very much respect, we ask you to look at those and also look at the evidence that is in the record, the evidence that's in the staff report. It's unfortunate that we don't have Walt available to present the staff report. If you've had an opportunity to review it, you will know that at the planning commission level, the staff reviewing the city engineer's recommendations, the public works recommendations, the applicant's engineer's information, recommended approval of the subdivision. The planning commission chair voted in favor of approving the subdivision on the basis that the engineering evidence demonstrated that there would be ample water available. So as you hear those very legitimate concerns, we ask that you think about those and say, are they evidence or are they concerns? And weigh those concerns against the benefit from this project, which is substantial. The city will receive significant improvements, it will receive significant financial compensation. And there are developments contemplated by this project that will actually increase the city's water availability, even accounting for the additional homes that would ultimately come online in 2023 and 2024. We ask that you weigh that evidence and concern about that evidence, or concern about water, against the positive impacts that the city's infrastructure will experience from significant improvements required as part of this project. Mr. Lucy will go over those in some detail. We ask you to also weigh those concerns against the capacity of the system that will be increased by this project. And you weigh those concerns against the long-term benefit to the city of adding additional ratepayers to help shoulder the burden of the very real needs of this city for significant infrastructure improvements. Those are very real needs. We respect those. This project is a way to change those. If this product doesn't go forward, the city's situation as it's today is no different than it was last August, when the city's water system was taxed and there were problems. Now, there's lots of things that have happened that are not related to the water system that will help alleviate that, as Lucy will talk about. But without a project like this, the city doesn't have the resources to make the improvements. The improvements associated with this project won't get made. Nothing will change. This project provides an opportunity to improve the city system, add some users, but actually end up with a net gain overall. So we believe that if you look at the benefit, the positive impact, the additional long-term benefits of adding those ratepayers, you're going to see that the evidence, the analysis of your systems and how much water they can handle, the improvements that will result from this project will demonstrate that the criteria at issue, are there adequate facilities available, is satisfied, that the project should be approved. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Lucy, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Mr. Lucy.
Thank you, thank you. Thanks for taking time to hear this out as well, too. We really appreciate it. I believe we have a PowerPoint presentation for you guys to kind of follow along with me on and try to go through that and speak as clearly as I can through a mask and make sure everyone's following along okay. Okay, so as you guys are aware, this is in regards to the appeal for the Park Meadows subdivision over there off 3rd Street next to Beulah Park. I'm Jake Lucy. I'm the developer on the project. We have our civil engineers who's represented by HBH. That's Andre Chernyshov and Mike Henry. You just heard from our legal counsel, Mark Hoyt, as well from Sherman, Johnny, and Fleet. And then our traffic engineer is Lancaster Mobley, who did the traffic impact analysis as well on the project. Todd Mobley, he is unavailable. He's out of the area right So if we can skip ahead to the next one there. So I'm going to let Mike and Andre kind of talk a little bit about this, but one benefit to having someone like HBH on the project as well, they do have an advanced experience working in situations like this where smaller municipalities have had resource issues and ways to solve them. They've got lots of years of experience, and them combined with who your city engineer is as well, provide a great resource. So Mike and Andre, I'll kind of let you talk about some of the experiences you have.
Hi, I'm Andre Chernishaw with HBH Consulting Engineers, the design engineer on the project. We've got Mike Henry here with me. Thank you. Just wanted to touch briefly on our experience. We've obviously done subdivision development type of work in small towns, and we've also done raw water intake improvements where small towns have issues with their raw water supply. And in fact, last year, we had finished a construction project for a small town on the Calapooya River, about 3 hours south, where they had this also seen low water levels and were able to prepare a design within about 3 months, and then the permitting took about 5 months through multiple reviewing agencies, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Department of State Lands, to obtain those permits, and then followed by construction in the July through September in water work period. So this was constructed right on the bank near the bottom of the river. That project did not have a log jam, but it did have an intake that took water in. There was a project down at the bottom of the list that we did for Tillamook County that had log jams on the site for promoting fish habitat and restoration of the site. So you know that is something that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife does like to see. They do prefer more natural features in the body of water as opposed to large concrete or riprap features. So they prefer natural features. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Mike.
Thank you, Andre. Again, my name is Mike Henry. Just for a little background, I just wanted to let you know, I was your city engineer for about 15 years, and I was your city planner for about 12 years. Most of you probably running around in grade school at the time, but I got to know the city and its citizens pretty well. One of the things that was discussed at the last meeting, and Andre touched upon it, is the issue of intakes and log jams. And I believe it was stated that somebody at the state had told somebody that Fish and Wildlife would not allow log jams. And I really want to dispel that. You can find any answer you want to, I think, with the agencies if you're talking to the right person. But I can tell you that on 2 occasions, Fish and Wildlife actually came to us and wanted us to put in log jams. And the one was the one project that he talked about in Tillamook, and the other was for the city of Rockaway Beach on Jetty Creek. And it's a salmon bearing stream. And they specifically asked us to put in log jams and some large rocks on the basis that they provide shade for the salmon and trout. And they also create pools that those fish can congregate in during the warmer summer days of so they do in fact allow log jams. In fact, they will prefer them in certain streams that are set up to utilize a log jam. But I did want to reiterate, we have done several intake facilities in the state of Oregon. We've done intakes for the city of Rockaway and Jetty Creek. We've done intakes for Oceanside Water District. We did 2 intakes for them. Neither of the streams, even though it's on the coast, neither of those streams were salmon bearing. But we did have to work with Fish and Wildlife and with Corps of Engineers and snow fisheries. We've also done them on the Bright Bush River. We just we're working on that one right now. as you'll recall, ditch line burned up about a year ago. And the intake was one of the things that got burned up, so we're replacing that. Igana, we did their intake. Oakland, we just completed their intake with the salmon stream. Amity, we did an intake on the Hill River, and that's just to mention a few. Those were all done probably within the last 5 years. So we do have a lot of experience with water. That is probably our expertise. Looking at Yamhill's water, I mean, yes, you had a drought. I mean, it was a bad one. It was the worst one on the record, I believe. There might have been one about 45 years ago that was true down also. But these things don't occur. And the kind of dispel, to give you an idea, this subdivision will use about 15.7 gallons a minute based on 57 lots. You corrected a leak after their water rush of 30,000 gallons a day, which in rough math comes to about 25 gallons a minute. So you actually already corrected more leakage than what water that the subdivision will need. And once we replace the lineal footage of water that we're required to replace, that line is known to have several leaks. So there will be a lot more water available to the city should you run into this situation. We'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All righty. So, yeah. So before we even went down the road of this process, we had a pre-application meeting with city staff. And basically, the issues that were brought up at the time of that meeting revolved nothing around the water. Offsite improvements were discussed. Some of the stuff for sanitary sewer and water lines. But there were zero issues raised on water concerns. Once we received that feedback was when we decided to proceed with the project, because all of our feedback was favorable. The city seemed to be in support of the project, understood that there was need for growth and what comes along with it. So all this info pointed towards leading forward. That feedback we received, we also relied on the expertise from the engineers of the city planner, who was a different city planner at the time as well. And we thought this is a great project to move forward with. So with that is when we hired our own independent engineering as well for the project. And with not only their experience working within the city of Yamhill as well, but also being based out of Yamhill County, they're based out of Newburgh. They saw it as a wonderful project to proceed forward with as well too. So all signs were pointing up at that point, which is why we're here today. So if we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So many of you are aware, brief overview of the project. South side of East 3rd Street between South Hemlock and South Cedar Street. It's approximately 12.7 acres, currently vacant. It's being farmed as grass seed right now, I believe. It's zoned for single family residential R2. And it's right now we have it planned as a 57 lot subdivision. It was a former Van Dyke property. If you go out and look at it, you can see why we feel it's an ideal setting for a subdivision. It's beautiful out there. There's already an existing subdivision. They're abutting it in between that and the park, overlooking beyond the urban growth boundary there. It's got a great setting. Trees that are going to be impacted by the development. In fact, there'll be addition of trees, that are brought in. So once again, something we saw as a favorable site. The reason why this property is within the urban growth boundary is the Van Dykes were approached approximately 20 years by the city to bring it into the urban growth boundary. They agreed at the time. Obviously, it was beneficial towards them. And also one of the things they had done at the time was they installed a sewer line within the property as well. Sewer line won't be able to be used because the sizing on it's incorrect. But at the time, they bear the burden of the cost of that sewer line because it was beneficial to the city, because it allowed the city to not have to bear the cost of a pump station being installed for their sewer system. So there was always the intent of this property being developed. You can go ahead and go to the next one here. As far as scheduling goes on it, because this was something that we want to make sure there's an understanding of the complete concept here. Should there be approval on it? Realistically, subdivision road and utility construction will begin sometime in the summer, or if this summer. Home construction realistically will not begin until approximately the beginning of 2023, because it's going to take anywhere from 4 to 6 months for these things to be completed, plans to be approved, all that stuff. Only then will, once all the plat is recorded, only then will permits be issued for building. And even at that time, there's not going to be 57 lots being, or 57 homes being thrown up all at once. It's going to take time for that to be built out. You know, it can be anywhere up to 18 months for all the homes to be built, especially depending on how the market's going, how quickly they can build, supply chain issues, all those sorts of things. Realistically, the first home is probably going to be ready, or move-in ready or ready for occupancy sometime close to the summer of 2023. Another thing to keep in mind too as well is before any homes are built, the conditions of approval must be completed and met. So homes can't go in without the new water and sewer lines that are proposed as part of this project. So it's not like we can throw streets in, put sidewalks in and start building homes and you still have depleted systems that are in place. You know, we have conditions of approval that are within the staff report there that we have to meet as developers. So that's another thing just to factor into all of this. So some of the biggest benefits we see from it is there's a lot of improvement going on with city infrastructure here. Existing systems that are going to be improved. We have offsite sanitary sewer mains. It's going to be around 278,000. Offsite stormwater mains, about 150,000. Rebuild of the existing full road width on 3rd Street there, about 450,000. Some of the offsite improvements, we've got water line improvements, totaling about 492,000, sewer line improvements, 278,000. And then the need for, or the potential need for a log jam or reworking of the intake structure. We understand these repairs won't fix the entire issue, but it does go towards the benefit of the city. And without development, these repairs don't take place right now in that, out in that area. Also too, this is a cost to us as the developers. And it's about approximately 1.75 million that's not being funded by the city. It's being funded by private developers as well. So continuing along with that, we have SDC funds that are going towards the city as well. Funds in the amount of just over 370,000 towards water, 20% of which is SDC creditable, about 220,000 towards sanitary sewer. Parks will receive about just under 191,000, streets just under 122,000, and stormwater just above 101,000. Total SDC fees that are going to be collected from the result of these houses being built, just above $1 million. It's a lot of money for the city. Not only that, but you have new residents that are going to help pay utility bills, which increases the money collected by the city and will add up over the long term. Why that's important, and listening into the last Water Advisory Committee hearing, water and sewer systems are not funded by tax dollars. They're funded by user fees. These new users will help provide more money, more resources for improvements to a system that does have some issues. I also heard a concern at the last meeting that some long-time residents are having some issues or have complained or verbalized the fact that water and utility bills are getting high and tough to afford on a fixed income. Well, if improvements are needed and the funds aren't being generated by the systems that are in place, the only way that more money is going to come in if it's funded by these users is by raising rates. By adding more users, it can help delay any of those rate hikes and hopefully put a cap on them, at least in the short term. So it'll help bear that burden. As far as the SDC funds go, that's decided by the city. But that's money collected from the the SDC or city decides how to spend the SDC fees and money collected by new residents from the utility bills. Project will also help with increased fire flow, which impacts or helps with safety. And it'll also help the city improve the public infrastructure. Along with that, we have the construction excise tax, which in its simplest form is it's money for schools. Typically schools, the way they generate more money is through tax bonds. This can hopefully help offset some of that. It's less money that taxpayers have to shell out. Just a rough estimate. Basically, it's $1 per square foot for the construction excise tax. If the average home size is about 2,000 square feet, we've got 57 units being put in there. It's approximately $114,000 that's generated for the schools without having to come out of the taxpayer's pocket. Along with that, you now have added property taxpayers. So if we base it on a $450,000 home, your annual estimated tax estimate there is about $4,537. 57 lots, that's almost or just above $258,000 a year generated just from these new taxpayers. These taxpayers help provide additional community resources, public safety towards your schools. It also helps slow the rise in some of the fees that are needing to be collected, like certain bonds needing to be passed. So here's kind of a breakdown of how that might work. For instance, using those numbers I just worked off of, you're getting an additional $111,000 towards the Yamhill Carlton School District each year. Taxes being paid directly to the city is an additional $60,000, a little above that a year. Property taxes directly Yamhill Fire, just above $23,000 a year. That's yearly. That's not just total. That's every year that you're getting just from these homes being brought in. And that money can go a long way. All right, so I talked about the water utility fees, as you're aware. That's what funds the improvements on these. Say we use the average utility bill of $150 a month. You know, probably not everyone spends that much, but there's some people who do spend above that. But if we factor that with each individual house, you've got about $1,800 a year coming in. We have 57 houses. That equates to just under $103,000 a year from new users. Increasing users help share in the future improvement costs to infrastructure. Once again, helps slow the rise in fees. Now, as far as the water use goes, I want to make reference to a quote there from the city staff report on December 8th. While the existing water system has several constraints, these constraints exist independent of the development, and the development will not significantly exacerbate any of the deficiencies. The water system improvements listed above and proposed by the developer will have a net benefit to the city. It's figured that the development's going to use less than 5% of the water produced by the city. Logjam has potential to improve the amount of water captured at the intake. That's an unknown quantity, but the people who were hired to figure this stuff out have reason to believe it'll be a benefit to the city and a benefit to the city's water system. At a minimum, it allows the ability to capture more. It's not going to hurt things. Also, too, in talking with Jason at Public Works, city engineers as well too. It's estimated that about 20% of the water being captured at the intake is not making it out to the users. From what I understand, state acceptable loss is around 8%. So the city's got some major deficiencies going on. There's a lot of water being lost. I also understand there was about a 30,000 gallon a day leak that was detected. I believe it was before restrictions, but even before, those losses have a compound effect on what's being used and what's being lost. As Mike touched on earlier, this project's, we can assume it's going to use about 15,700 gallons a day. 30,000 gallon a day loss that's been repaired. If my math's correct, which I'm not the best at sometimes, that kind of eliminates that issue or helps go towards that at a minimum as well. We do know that there's multiple leaks that haven't been identified yet. And those leaks do need to be repaired. And every little leak that is fixed, especially with the money that can come from this, will help benefit the city in the long run. There's a lot of cast iron galvanized lines, and this will replace about 4% of those lines existing in the city. Any of you who have cast iron or galvanized lines within your home know that they don't last forever. There's a lifetime to them. So this will help replace with new, more efficient systems. Let's see here, we can go ahead and go to the next one. So the city typically diverts about 400 gallons per minute at the intake for several hours each day to meet water demands by all water users. The water rights of the city allow up to 575 gallons per minute. City of Yamhill currently has well over 252,000 gallons per day of water rights not being captured at the intake. And obviously there's a limit based on how much water is being produced, but the city still has a lot more to its water rights that can be used. Mentioned earlier about 30,000 gallons per day. That equates to about 20.83 gallons per minute. Mike said 15,700 gallons per day subdivision. Like I said, I'm bad at math. My bad math said 14,400 was about 10 gallons per minute. Either way you cut it, that leak that was fixed can go towards what the impact the subdivision will have on this. The water management guidelines that were put in place, they still allowed for the same amount of water consumption that was being used during winter months. Big difference was exterior use, essentially. Washing cars, watering lawns, watering gardens. From what I understand, based on the use, based on what I'm hearing from city staff, it wasn't an impact to domestic water use and our abilities to, the abilities to take a shower, drink water, live a normal, happy, healthy life. So as far as drought history goes within Yamhill County, according to drought.gov, Yamhill County was considered to be in a severe drought in 2021. Most of the state was considered to be in a severe or extreme drought in 2021. The city of Yamhill itself, or Yamhill County, I should say, has been a severe drought in the past without water restrictions. This is over the last 20 years. 2001, 2005, 2014, 2015, 2018, 2020. As far as I understand, no water management guidelines were placed during those times. So this has happened. There's some oversights within management that I believe have led to better strategy. Domestic water supply has always been sufficient. Summer irrigation played its part. Better early season drought management, water restrictions, likely not necessary. From what I understand, the staff has learned, especially with the formation of the Water Advisory Committee, and how to better manage the impound. And also in my experiences and from what I've heard through other people speaking, you have a very competent public works director who's in charge now and who had some learning curves they had to go through, but has really taken his time to figure out how to improve this stuff. And it's like anything else, kind of like touching the stove when it's hot when you're a kid. Learn that hurts the first time, but you don't go back to it. Learn how to avoid those things. I think some of the strategies that are being put in place, better management of those impounds, like I mentioned, you're able to improve in the future. Everything in regards to that drought was created by a perfect storm. Precipitation actually was up about 5 inches in Yamhill County from 2020 to 2021. Bigger issue is we had the hottest temperatures I can ever remember in my lifetime, and a long stretch of it, plain and simple. We had an extended period without rain at one point, combined with those hot temperatures. Those things are unusual. They're not the norm. And I use the example of the San Am Canyon wildfires. There's wildfires that exist every year, but not every year does the city of Detroit burn to the ground. It's caused by extenuating circumstances that are not normal. Because if that were the case, no one would live out there. There's hundreds of houses being rebuilt because they understand that this is something that is not going to happen on a yearly occasion. Also, the city's better prepared. You have the formation of the Water Advisory Committee. Potential problems can be managed better based on previous experience, based on the experience you have from your professionals and who you have in charge. Also, too, in regards to that water use, those high temps, they lead to that evaporation of water. So more water is being used to provide the same results. Sometimes it's just like running uphill in sand. You can't gain ground sometimes. Now, something besides water, there's improvements to the sewer system. Mentioned that in the pre-app meeting, that there was concerns about the existing system. The installation of these newer sewer lines combined with the offsite improvements equals almost 1,000 feet of new line. It'll eliminate groundwater infiltration into pipes during peak flows in wet weather seasons. Basically, this ends up being a zero infiltration and zero inflow system. Adding users will have no measurable impact on the current system. As you can see on the report issued on December 8th by AKS Engineering, proposed 57 lot development is anticipated to increase. John, what does ADWF stand for again? Average
dry weather flow.
Thank you. By approximately 0.009
million gallons per day.
Thank you, or 10% of the existing average dry weather flow. The increase is not directly proportional to increase in sewer connections, but instead is a function of the length of the sewer pipe in place. The project will increase the city's total length of sewer main by roughly 4%. However, new sewer systems constructed with the development will be watertight and less susceptible to inflow and infiltration associated with PIF's condition. As a result, this development is anticipated to have no measurable impact on the existing deficiencies with the influent treatment plant. This is a huge benefit to the city. It's making things more efficient. It's improving the systems that are in place. And it's coming at the cost of us. So where the city stands, city staff is in full report, as you heard earlier. Quote directly from the Planning Commission hearing on the staff report, city staff finds the proposal complies with the applicable subdivision criteria and recommends the Planning Commission approve the application subject to the following conditions. Didn't list out the conditions because there's a lot of them. But basically, you have experts who agree. They're paid professionals. You, the city, have hired them. You're relying on their expertise. They are not in a position to provide bad advice. Their jobs are on the line. Their reputations are on the line. AKS is a very, very reputable engineering firm within the state. You have a city planner who is a very reputable person. They're telling you move forward with the project. The benefit is there for the city. Also from the city engineers, there's financial contribution. Financial contribution by the developers is established by the city's system development charges. In total, the development will contribute approximately, now these numbers are actually wrong. These are based off the 2021 numbers that just increased from what I understand. And I mentioned them at the beginning, but large scale capital improvement projects often require outside funding in the form of grants and loans. The funds contributed by the developer could be applied as matching fund for grants. In 2021, the city was awarded $192,000 in federal funding to evaluate a replacement for the upper transmission line. Federal funding required a 25% match by the city to cover the total project cost of $252,000. SDC funds generated by the most recent subdivision put in town, Yamhill Park Estates, contributed to the $60,000 match provided by the city. In another example, the city recently missed on $1 million grant opportunity with Yamhill County due to lack of matching funds. Financial contribution by the developer improves the city's ability to fund water system capital improvements. From what I understand, there's some pretty big projects on there, and this provides money to get some of those grant matching. Continued along, as highlighted in our letter dated December 8th, the city's ability to generate water is limited by naturally occurring stream flows in Turner Creek. This constraint exists with or without the addition of proposed development, as was experienced during the drought conditions in summer of 2021. It's noteworthy that even under drought conditions, the city was able to produce enough water to match the equivalent of the city's customer water demands during typical winter months. The increased demand in summer months is driven by irrigation, as I spoke to earlier. In short, even under the drought conditions and water restrictions of 2021, the city is still capable of meeting the domestic water needs for their customers. There will be other years where rainfall and snowpack will support creek levels to the point where summer water restrictions will not be warranted. The city has recognized the constraints of Turner Creek water supply, and since April 2021 has been actively evaluating alternative water resources. The YWAC was formed and established in 2021 to lead efforts in advising City Council on the opportunities for a secondary water supply. It's a major undertaking. Summarize, City of Hillsborough Interties being evaluated project will likely cost somewhere around $10 million to construct. With no clear funding source available, the timing of completing the project is unknown. The city would see benefit in adding water customers to help bear the burden of this capital improvement. We understand the limitations of the city's water supply is a concern for the city and its citizens, but when considering the additional demand on the water system versus benefits, we feel it's in the city's best interest to approve the development. That's directly from your city engineer. Water Advisory Committee, November 30th, the last item there was a discussion on is the proposed subdivision on 3rd Street. After reviewing, the group agreed to support this subdivision and asked the council to collaborate with the developer on a log jam. The Water Advisory Committee has also identified steps to take to avoid some of the management guidelines that were put in place and avoid being placed on restrictions as well. So your own Water Advisory Committee is encouraging this development to go along. Some letters of support here. Basically, these are citizens or business owners within the area. They understand the importance of it. Not only that, these folks have a reputation to protect. They have businesses in town that need your support, and they're going to go out on a limb if they see a benefit to the city, not something they see is going to hurt the city. So what happens next? If the project's approved, offsite improvements are made to the existing infrastructure, leak repair, improvement of fire flow, more efficient sewer lines, minimal to no net impact on the existing water supply. Increased customers, spread the burden of cost, more tax dollars for schools, public services, public utilities, increased revenue for local businesses, additional funds for grant matching, and a positive impact to home values. Without it, where else does the money come from? Or where do the repairs come from? So if the project's denied, what happens? Nothing. You still have the same issues. The ability to repair these issues is limited by funding and money generated by current users. Additional financial burden for existing customers with fewer users, less people to spread out the costs, therefore costs have to go up. So, sorry, I'm going long, I'm almost done here. In conclusion, we wouldn't do this if we thought it was going to hurt the city. One of the co-applicants on this is Steve Ryan. I'm related to Steve, we're cousins. He's a personal user within the community. Just like I talked about the business owner's reputation, he has a reputation within the community he wants to protect. He's been involved with the schools in the town and supporting it. He would not do these things or be a part of something that he felt was going to be damaging to the city in which he lives. He's part of one of the water districts. All of us involved, we have our own reputations we want to protect, and we've spent years building them. And once again, we wouldn't go forward if we didn't think it was a viable option. Also, we have support from the city and its staff. We have written statements of approval from city engineers, water advisory committee, and the professionals who are in charge of these things agree. The city's better prepared. It's unfortunate that had it come to the manner it did. But from situations like this come growth and learning and opportunity to make situations better. Your city is in a better situation because of what happened last summer. And don't forget that. And you will be in a much better situation moving forward. The net benefit, as you've heard, it's positive to the city. So on that, we had a few questions that we wanted to address for council and staff here that we were hoping to have addressed. Because quite frankly, citizens deserve answers to some of these questions here, because they're the ones who are the users. So the first one, has there ever been water restrictions placed on residents in the past? Without SDC funds, can system improvements be made in a similar or quicker time frame than what can be done with the funds coming in from the development or additional users or improvements both on and off-site by the project? City engineers, we ask if the homes had been present last summer, would it have had a measurable effect on the water supply or substantially increase the restrictions that were already implemented? If the water restriction guidelines the Water Advisory Committee has put in place were present in the summer of 2021, would the water restrictions have been the same, less abrupt, or not necessary at all? Between the leak repairs done in late 2021 and improved management of the impoundment, would that offset the impact of this project? Will this project be a positive for the city and its infrastructure or a negative? And then also too, between last summer's restrictions and now, what's the city done to learn from what they went through? What's been done to help improve the situation? So thank you for listening. I apologize for going long. And we appreciate any feedback and look forward to hearing your decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lucy.
And Mayor Walt's available.
Wonderful. We will go to staff report then.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, everyone there. I humbly apologize for my tardiness. I could not get into the meeting until about quarter after. So again, my apologies here. I'll just really keep this very simple. The applicant has gone through their proposal. You're well aware of the location of the property, what they're planning on doing. I think you're well aware, unless there's any questions, on how we got here with regard to the number of meetings in front of the Planning Commission and also the appeal to the City Council. At this juncture, the project is subject to provisions in Chapter 1108 of the Municipal Code and also 11.20. The first has to do with subdivisions, the latter design standards. And I'm just going to briefly summarize what we arrived at. This subdivision is certainly allowed in the R2 zone. After going through everything, all lots meet the minimum area, width, and depth requirements of the zone, as well as the lot to depth ratio. All lots front a street and meet the minimum frontage requirements. The layout connects to the existing street system to ensure connectivity and completeness with and complies with the block standards. And all streets can comply with the width and improvement requirements. In fact, I must note, one of the commission members stated, I think it was at the December hearing, that it appears that 99% of this project meets the requirements. We are really here to look at the issue of public facilities, and under section 110804C, it does require adequate public facilities must be available to serve the project. Now, the city engineer in his report noted facilities are in place or can be extended to serve the development. This also includes water. Conversely, though, testimony provided by opponents strongly disagreed with that conclusion. In 2021, the city faced a severe water shortage during the late summer, Turner Creek and city's water source nearly running dry. The situation created a level 2 water emergency, whereby several types of water uses were prohibited and others significantly curtailed. The commission shared the concerns raised at the hearing and from submitted written material. The commission was not confident that regarding water, adequate public facilities will be available to serve the newly created lots. And due to these concerns, the commission found the proposal failed to comply with the subdivision requirements. Again, I want to emphasize there were no other issues raised with regard to this project on the layout, the connectivity, the necessary improvements. The issue that came to fruition with regard to the planning commission was the matter of water. And so with that, we have the appeal, and that goes in, obviously here in front of the city council. I'm not sure if there's that much more I can really add at this point, just to note that the staff report in front of the council goes through all the findings and shows exactly where this proposal complies with those requirements. Again, the one issue that was of concern to the planning commission was the issue of water. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Counselors, any questions for Walt at this time?
Do you know where the loss of water, the previous loss of water that we were talking about is going to?
The previous,
Versus being captured, why it wasn't being captured, I don't, Jason's on the line, I guess, but like you mentioned earlier, you're saying that the water wasn't being captured?
in the intake.
Yeah, when
At
you
the
was talking about
treatment
that,
plant.
yeah,
Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, so with that concern in causing the loss, like, obviously that's gonna affect the water levels, I guess? Is that what you were talking about in conjunction with that?
So where the water is being captured from the intake at Turner Creek, by the time it meets the residents, there's a 20% loss occurring somewhere. At some points in the system.
Okay, does he have any knowledge on that, or can you speak on that?
Walt, do you have any answers to that, or would you like to refer that to the Public Works Manager?
I really would think that when it comes to public works issues, understand, I appreciate the comments that the applicant made, but in this case, I must rely on comments from Public Works and city engineer. And that's why the initial report recommended approval to the planning commission. So yes, I think that's something Public Works should respond to.
Mr. Wofford, are you available?
Yes. So if we're talking about the 20% loss from the impound to the intake, that was sheer design of that intake that we currently have online. If we're talking about the 20.74% loss in the water lines in our distribution lines, that's just due to leaks and other problems as far as distribution issues.
I guess what I'm coming to is the planning commission denied it based off the water issue, but we've heard the housing development with the lines could help with that. And then Mr. Wofford, I guess you guys are working on other solutions to shore up creating a better system and or having the water not be a loss. So I'm just trying to figure out where we're at with that between the housing development, if it went in, and where the city is with their projection of what they think the water solution would be or situation would be here in the next 6 months or year. Combine those together, and I hear them, but for us, what do you think that would be, or what are you planning? Where are we going with that, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, to relate back to what AKS put down as far as the 20% loss, I mean, we're much less than that at this point. That was all dated in 2018, but with all of our fixes in the water distribution line, I mean, we're probably around just a guesstimation, we're probably hovering around 13 to 14%. Moving forward, we're looking at the water conservation plan, leak detection, possibly the log jam like they talked about, and operating the impound correctly from a public works standpoint.
So Jason, you're saying that we have already corrected at least 5% and potentially up to 8 or 9% of the water lost?
Yes, and there again, that's just a rough guesstimate, but yes.
And the development will use 4%, 4.5?
I believe it's around up of 5%.
So the water we've already saved in the line by doing the repairs on leaks would potentially cover that use of the new development.
That's correct. I mean, going back to what Jake Lucy and Mike had to say from HBH. So, yes.
Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
John, can you support that?
Yeah, the water required to serve this development is roughly 5% of what the city produces. And the city historically had about 20% water loss. There have been improvements on pipelines that have corrected some of that water loss. And the city's continuing to look at ways to reduce water loss in their systems.
And then as far as water loss, and this is Jason or John, the intake has also been improved. Is that correct at the treatment plant to take in more water? Or are we working on creating that intake?
That's something we're still working on that hasn't been corrected yet. No.
Would that be corrected in the next 2 years?
There again, like what Jake was saying, I mean, with the SDC funding, yes, possibly. I mean, I would say yes. I mean, that's something us and AKS are working on.
So yeah, with the logjam project that's been discussed here, that will improve the city's capturability of water that's in the creek.
Okay.
I will add to something. So with the water loss, I mean, let's date back to 2016. I mean, we had 44.5% water loss. So as we sit right now, when we're, around that 15% water loss of where we're sitting now, I mean, that kind of gives you an idea of how much work's been done in that span up to date. So how much capturability is in those lines and in the intake.
That's substantial.
Correct.
Thank you, Public Works and Engineering.
Mhm.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so I guess just for that, so to clear it up, it'd be in the last, just going back from what I've read being here, in the last, let's say, 10 to 15 years with the leaks and everything else, the old stuff. In the last 2 years or so, we've progressed forward and we've started, even without the development, we're even in with the last summer that we had, we are still progressing forward and slowly raising our water levels up to where we might not have to worry about that as bad as we did last year. Like we're moving forward. We're not.
Yeah, yes, Andrew, we're definitely trending forward. And there again, I mean, we learned a lot, in this last curtailment, and operations was a big thing, and being able to operate that impound and those gate valves correctly this go around. I mean, we might not be in the same situation come this summer.
Thank you.
Mr. Wondolowski, do you have anything more you'd like to say in your staff report? You're muted.
Well, you have to mute.
Got it. Thank you. No, do not have anything else to add. No.
City councilors, any additional questions?
No.
Okay, and we will move forward here. So proponents, was there anything additional you wanted to share before we move forward? You'll get another opportunity, but.
We've spoken up at this point.
Okay, so opponents, we're going to do an opportunity for opponents to speak and proponents. We will let the proponents, the people that are for the development, speak first. And I'll go down the list of people that said they want to speak. And if this is the time that you want to do, then please do. If it isn't, then just raise your hand, let me know, and I'll call on you for the next time around. First one, Jay Disbro, are you wanting to speak for a proponent only?
Not at this time. My comments are reserved for the comment section in the council meeting.
For the public comment section. Excellent. Thank you, sir. I'll make note of that. And Andre Schern, I'm gonna mutilate that name. Andre?
already spoken.
Did you? Okay. Michael Henry, you've already spoken. Thank you, sir. Doug Edwards?
Yeah, I'm a 30-year resident of this town and heard a lot of talk about the past. Well, my past started in 2021. We were packing our water out from the toilet and the shower water to keep water going. I cut my usage down by 3/4. Won't do it again because the outside district used unlimited amounts of water because of the mishandling of this city council in order to make everyone treated fairly during this water crisis. And all the talk about intake and all that's wonderful, but no one controls Mother Nature. If there's no water, what's the intake gonna be? I don't know if you guys want to hear this or not. I don't really care.
You've got 3 minutes.
Okay. But the next thing I wanted to bring up is, the speeches we've heard are great. Reminds me of buying a new car. However, the facts are the facts. Last year was horrible. You cannot guarantee the future. So I'd like to see the city for once, let the horse pull the cart. Do not put the cart before the horse. All this infrastructure is wonderful if it's done prior to the first home being built. That's, we can't have adequate water. We need a supply of water. That's all I got to say. I just hope the city will work on the infrastructure. Oh, one other thing, talk about leaks. This city's gonna have a lot of leaks. Got a lot of old plumbing out there and stuff. So what's gonna happen? I had an experience myself where the main line was broken due to the guest method of where my pipe was. For hours, a 6-inch main gushed water everywhere, flooded my new home, washed all my grass, sod, gravel to the neighbors, which they didn't really appreciate. So how many gallons was lost during that little escapade? Because the city come out, didn't even know where the shutoff was. These things are going to happen. It can't be adequate water. We need a surplus of water. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. So are you for or against?
I enjoy new neighbors, but I want the infrastructure in place prior. That's what I meant by putting the cart before the horse.
Thank you, sir.
Don't address them as they come up.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Mark Hoyt?
That's me. You're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jake Lucy? Never mind. Dale White?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just signing in. I didn't have anything to say.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure you had the opportunity.
New resident, I'm just trying to.
I'll ask you again on the next 2 rounds, okay? Sherry Wilson?
Yes. I just kind of have more questions. Sherry Wilson, 710 East Main Street, Yamhill. When you guys talked about the log jams that you'd helped with, how many years ago is that? Is that recent or has this been in past history of?
Both of those are recent. The one in Tillamook County, in fact, we got an award for the second best project in the state of Oregon 2 years ago. And the project in Rockaway is about 4.5, 5 years old.
Because I was just like kind of concerned, do they allow these fairly often or it's, so that was, and how long it takes for the fish and
Like I said,
wildlife.
a lot of times you'll have a joint permit with the Corps of Engineers and the Fish and Wildlife.
Okay.
And the Fish and Wildlife will come out and look at the intake for the stream and make recommendations as to what they would like to see. And in both these situations that I talked about, Fish and Wildlife actually asked us to put in log jams or logs. And
So it isn't a far-fetched idea. I just, you know.
right, they
it does
didn't,
happen.
they didn't specifically require us to do it, but they asked us to do it.
Okay. I know that when we were in the planning commission meeting, the public hearing about this, I know that when Jason Wofford actually did say that it would put a substantial strain, sorry, and Jason, you can correct me if you want, on our sewer system. So when I hear when you talk saying, oh, it's gonna be improved, there's not gonna be any problems, it's like, what is it? Is there gonna be a strain on it or not? And when you also talked about when the property was sold from Van Dyke's, that they'd put in the sewer lines to be proactive for selling the property to help keep something about a pump for the system. So now that those sewer lines are not the correct size, are you still gonna have to now put another, are we, the city, gonna have to put a pump system on your end? No.
You want me to answer that or you want?
I think the city engineer could probably speak to that.
No, this development will not require a pump to be added on the system.
Okay. And when we talked about the new development is said to only use 5% of the city's water, is that, are you going off in numbers that is just being gauged on domestic use?
So back, one part of your question didn't get answered as well too, about the zero lot or about the improvements to the city sewer system. That's coming directly from your city engineers and from Public Works. That's why we quoted that. That was in their staff report as well. It's a zero, because it's a more efficient system. In theory, there's zero infiltration, and John can attest to that. And also to the 5% water use, that also comes from city engineer reports as well.
So John,
Your biggest strain on your sewer system is rainwater. It's not domestic, it's not from flushing your toilets.
okay.
So
So
if big
when
rain events-
Jason said that, when, you know, it was part of the reason that I believe the planning commission decided to vote no. Jason?
Yeah, so yeah, let me jump in there. So right now, multiple lines within the city are tied in. Our sewer system is tied in with our storm system. After dye testing and TVing a lot of these lines, that's where the major issue in our wastewater system is coming from, is the storm water being tied into directly right into our wastewater system. So our numbers are astronomical when we have rainstorms. I mean, it's not only doubling, it's tripling. I mean, John has the hard numbers. I mean, we're up to, during a hard rain, we go from 100 and some odd thousand to 400 to 500,000 gallons.
So then we are gonna build at some point then a different system for the rainwater.
That would be
not
my
to go
direction.
into the sewer system.
Yes.
Okay,
But you know,
so
there again,
when
we need the
does
proper
that-
funding. What's that?
When would that happen?
I couldn't answer that. 'cause
Okay,
that's
so
the-
it's still gonna put a stress on our sewer system because the rainwater is still gonna be going in there, correct?
Yes, yes.
No, that's not entirely correct. There's the segment that the developer is being asked to replace goes from 3rd Street down adjacent to the park and it crosses under the highway.
Right.
There's a creek that runs directly over the top of that line.
Mhm.
And it's an old sewer line that is leaking or water is infiltrating into. So by replacing that line, there will be less infiltration, less rainwater getting to the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay. That's all the questions I had for this, but I do want to talk on the other couple things later on. When we have the option. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. And so was that proponent?
Not necessarily. We talked about it. It would be nice to have all these things in place before we add to the system, but
And I hear that, thank you.
Mayor Potter, neutral is also an option.
Neutral is an option, okay. We don't, neutral's okay, we're good with neutral. We'll continue with proponents and who would like to speak on the proponent side or neutral. Ingrid, Denmark. Okay. Junia.
I didn't check it.
No, okay. Daryl Smith,
That'd be me.
please, sir, do you want to speak on as a proponent?
No, as an opponent.
Okay,
Yeah.
you want to hold off until we do the opponents or you want to speak
Sure.
now?
Well, I'll do it now.
Okay.
Some things are fresh in my mind. The sewer lines that exist in the city, to kind of answer your question, what they're doing there would just address it at that one point. We've got probably, I don't know, several miles of old sewer systems here that will not be addressed by what they're talking about here, improvement to the sewer system. But that's one thing. My main thing was the water itself. You know, I lived here last summer and I too caught my water in a basin and went to McMinnville and I hauled water once a week and to try to water my outside unsuccessfully, I might add. Everything I tried to water died. You just can't do it. You know, at my age, I physically can't do it, even though I had a truck to carry the water and you still got to get it from your truck to where you were trying to put it. So everything I planted outside died. And I too will not try to conserve water next year. If I'm going to plant a garden, I'm going to water that garden. And irregardless of what happens to the city water, but it all goes back to capacity. Now, it'd been nice if someone from Fish and Wildlife would have been here and told us about that creek and what you can and cannot do in it. I know one thing, you have plenty of water rights, but water flowing is not water rights. They're two different things. And you cannot capture 100% of the water. Marine life requires a certain percent of that creek be left. You know, you just can't dam the whole thing up and put a pump in there and suck her up into a tank. You can't do it. And the other thing is, you know, speaking of an unusual dry year, yeah, it was unusual dry, but it's not the only unusual dry year. And does anybody here remember what happened in 1933 about September? None of us were alive, of course. Big burn started right out of north of Forest Grove, burned the whole Tillamook burn. That was in 1933. Those burns consisted subsequent burns years after, up until the last one was actually 1951, but the bigger ones were in the 30s and early 40s. So what happened? Well, we went through and the West Coast went through an extreme drought. Not only the West Coast, but the whole West. My family came from Kansas and Dad used to tell me about the Dust Bowl. So it extended from basically Western Kansas all the way down to Texas, to the Dakotas and all the way out here. So we had dry years for a long period of time. Our weather is cyclical. It goes through these periods. We're going into a dry period again. This won't be the only dry year we'll have. Okay. They're wet. Some places of the country and the world is extremely wet. I don't know if you saw Australia last few days, but they have water taller in this building where they don't ever get water. So things are changing in our weather patterns, but we've got to have a secure, known source of water before you go ahead and do it. You know, the 5%, or I know I used about 150 gallons a day. Okay. Now, I don't know what that 57 homes, you multiply that out, what that comes to. But if you'd added those extra homes to where we were at last year, we would not have had water. Okay. We can go down to a tanker truck here and fill up a bottle to drink, but you can't do that to flush your toilet. You know, you have to have a certain percent of water volume to keep liquids, solids moving down with the liquids to get to the sewer down there. And the other thing is fire suppression. I was walking here a few weeks ago now, and down at the end of 3rd Street, they were doing a test on the hydrant. And it shot up, you know, about this high, a little over my head. The volume of water coming out of that hydrant. Now, I don't know how much it takes to fight a fire, but I think it takes more than that. And there was no other fires, and you know, and the other thing about usage I heard here is it's in the 24-hour period. You got to remember, everybody uses water at about the same time. We don't use it equally out over a 24-hour period. We probably use it from 6 in the morning to 10 at night or something. I don't have any figures, but I imagine 90% of the water is used in that period of time. So you can't take a 24-hour period and judge your water usage on that. It won't work. So anyhow, you gotta get water, you gotta tie into that Hillsborough line, and the city can grow it. Otherwise, the city should just grow with small developments. We can't take care of the housing needs of the state of Oregon and the United States in a little town like this that has old infrastructure. You build everything new and right out there. You tie it into this little stuff. It's like, you know, it's just not, everything's old. You know, we have no storm drain out in all that, the east part of town out there. When it rains, those houses fill up with water under the basements, every one of them, because the streets are higher than the foundations. So there's no drainage out there now. You build a new one, yeah, you got good drainage, you tie in and everything works perfect. But it doesn't work perfect for the old houses. And, you know, I can't imagine what it would cost to tear up the streets and put all new sewers in. But it's not gonna be anything that any of us could afford. I know I have 3 minutes, so I must use them all up. But anyhow, our water and sewer bills are extremely high for retired people here in town. We can't afford $400,000 homes. So we subsequently can't afford these high water and sewer bills that maybe the people that do build $400,000 homes can afford to pay.
Thank you, sir. For proponents, Robert Davis. Okay. And Patty?
I'm an opponent also.
Okay. And then I can't read this one. I think the last name is Polly. Shay Corrigan?
Yeah, I just, neutral on this, simply have a question. When this was brought up to the planning commission, beginning of February, the planning commission was told that the logjam was off the table. Now, all of a sudden, we're talking logjam. What has happened between then and now? I mean, I'll address that to anybody that has an answer.
You're allowed to respond to that.
Sure, you're.
From our basis of knowledge, it was never off the table. It was always our understanding that it was part of our conditions. So I'm not sure where that got lost in translation with things.
It was listed in the conditions of approval for the planning commission to review.
So in the December meeting with the planning commission, a logjam was discussed. That was as if something was going to happen. The meeting that happened in, I believe it was the beginning of February on that, we were told at that point that the logjam was no longer a for sure thing, that it was potentially going to be blocked by Fish and Wildlife, DEQ, numerous other agencies, none of whom had been made aware of that, what I understood.
Okay, I think I can clarify for you.
Please, because I'm curious. I
So
just
the
don't know
Water
what happened.
Advisory Committee came up with that as an option to consider. They took it to the city staff. The city staff says, well, we've got to talk to ODFW. We've got to talk to these people. We've got to talk to these people. And then once we get information from them, we can come back to the Water Advisory Committee with this information for them to make a further decision on it. So essentially, it's not off the table, but it's on hold until additional information is received, is my understanding. Is that correct?
Yeah, they just haven't been formally engaged yet.
Since it's been a follow-up to that, and thank you, Ms. Mayor, that was helpful. I understand, and I think it's great that sometimes Fish and Wildlife allows for the water jams, or the water, log jams. With the percentage, what's the percentage of denial when applied for?
There's no way to know that.
There's no stats from the state on how many log jams that the Fish and Game deny?
Well, I can answer this in part. I can't give you stats on how many are and aren't
No,
approved.
and I'm not looking for a specific answer. I'm legitimately just asking a question. I'm curious.
Sure. What I can tell you is that the reason that we selected a log jam as the approach to improve the water intake, is it has a higher likelihood of approval than proposing a new concrete structure out in the middle of the street.
Of course.
So that is why that was recommended.
But again, that could be denied. Like, we don't know for sure, right? We're just hoping.
It's a lot better than just hoping.
Okay,
It's a high likelihood of approval.
fair enough. Thank you.
You will get another opportunity.
Yeah, I was just, they won't allow us to build another dam, a cement structure, that's part of it. There used to be one, so. right.
Yeah, we're not proposing a dam.
Yeah.
We're not proposing a
Because they
cement
wouldn't
structure.
approve it. Anyway.
Mr. Corrigan, are you finished?
I am, thank
Okay.
you, sir.
Carolyn Buxton? No. Okay. Robert Buxton? Linda?
No, we were just signing in is all.
Okay, I want you to make sure you get an opportunity if you want it. Angela Cook? Amy Brewer?
We would just be a delighted commercial if you'd like to hear it now.
I know, and I apologize, but we have to wait till after
Okay.
the hearing.
Yep.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Kimberly Howell?
I'm with Amy.
Okay.
Stick around, it's real fun.
Stick around, okay. They have a presentation and they're waiting till
Very
after this
short.
to present it.
Very-
Rocky?
Yes. The city has developable land and a developer wishes to develop it, and there's a process that we go through in order to determine whether or not that can be done. To date, for all of the activities, it would appear as though all of the standards, regulations, requirements of a developer to develop what is identified as a 57 lot subdivision. It sounds like and potentially looks like it meets all of the requirements. The issue is, and a very strong point, because you have a whole community. I should say we have a whole community of people that are interested in water. Water that either is or is not available, and in particular, because of what we experienced in year 2021. As a result of that, and I haven't heard the term comprehensive audit, but it would really seem to me somewhat simple. If a comprehensive audit of our water, comprehensive meaning all of the water that is available and tracking where all of it goes. And the one unknown might be loss. You might not know where all the loss is, but you can track pretty much everything else. And once that is established, that minus whatever the volume is must be loss. If enough water is identified through an audit that this development can happen, I don't know that anybody is actually going to object, because the land's available, a developer is interested, and they go through all of the process. And if all of the people are assured through this comprehensive audit that the water is there, then the project most likely could proceed. Then if we have a problem, the problem is either nature, maybe, or it's going to be identified as internal in some way. For me, I believe that this is the issue that you, the council, needs to look at and deliberate upon.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to opponents. I'm going to run through the list again.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, we need to check with.
Oh,
people online as
thank you
well.
very much. I appreciate that. Did you have something to?
Yeah, I was gonna be a proponent, but when you're.
Oh, excellent. Can we come back to you? Perfect, thank you.
You just want to ask the people online to raise their hand.
So those that are online and visiting us virtually, if you have a proponent comment that you would like to make during this public hearing, please raise your hand or star 9. And we will call upon you to unmute. At this time, we're not seeing anyone. We'll give it another 10 seconds. Okay, we will move on then. Thank you very much, those that are visiting us virtually. And sir, please go ahead.
Chuck Mitchell, 760 Second Street. I'd like to go back to 1998, when most people probably, some people have lived here since then, other people haven't. And in February of 1998, we had a double sand filter system that was our water treatment plant. We were down to one of the sand filters working, the other one was offline. There was a flood, high turbidity, we had to have a boil water notice here in the city of Yamhill for 3 days. I remember that very well because I was interviewed on the Channel 2 News because of that. And I walked them right out there to that water treatment plant and showed them what we had. It was bad. State of Oregon shut us down for 3 days. I looked into the Channel 2 News, told them we'll have a new water treatment plant here in 2 years. Immediately, we went into discussions with the city engineer to begin the process of building a new water treatment plant. Part of that water treatment plant responsibility was to be able to provide water to every available lot within the urban growth boundary. So a lot of money was spent to do a lot of research and analysis to determine what size water treatment plant we needed to provide enough water that if every available piece of land within the urban growth boundary had a house on it, the city of Yamhill would be able to provide water for all those houses. We ended up with the plant that we currently have now. We had added an additional 500,000 gallon storage tank to provide 1 million gallons of storage capacity at the top of Reservoir Road. Again, the city spent thousands of dollars between 1998 and 2001 to come up with those analyses, because when we got the money from the state of Oregon to build that new water treatment plant, we had to be able to provide that water to all those citizens. If anything was to get developed, we had to be able to provide water for that. A couple things that had to happen as well. We needed a new water line from the storage tanks to town. We now have that. A lot of stuff is that I hear was hashed out between 98 and 2002. We had a drought in 2000, 2001. A lot of people came into town wanting some water from the city. We had a moratorium on it because not only do we provide water to everybody within the urban growth boundary, we also have 5 or 6, 10 outside water districts. Okay, we have 10 outside water districts that we're providing water to as well. The city attorney sat to my left, informed me that if all had to be, we could shut those off to provide the water to the city limit at that time. Because the city is, it's the city's water, it's our responsibility to provide water.
Not surplus.
Yeah, to the city, but we've never wanted to do that. We've always provided the water to the outside water districts. So as far as water, we have some issues, yeah, some storage issues that should have been addressed years ago, but for whatever reason, you know, they haven't. But I think that's on the table. I think there's some things moving forward. But at the time, we've calculated that there was plenty of water to provide for that piece of property, that piece of property, this piece of property, and any vacant lot within the city limits, and any kind of commercial applications as well. So there was extensive, and I mean extensive, analysis done back then, that it's all you have to do is pull up the the minutes from between 98 and 2002, and you're gonna see everything that we did. I mean, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here, but we've done the work. For 22 years later, and I knew back then that this city was not gonna be, 600 population, it was gonna grow, and it's growing, and here we are today. So, as far as the sewer, 3.5 years ago, we had it scoped. A company went around to every manhole and ran a camera up to every house and every clean out. And the report was, it came back, we had a really good sewer system for as old as it was. And the guy was very impressed that we had very little what's called INI. This engineer right here will explain that if you want to explain. Infiltration from water coming in because the sewer lines aren't, they're not, they might be pulling apart. We had very few issues. We had a couple roots, but nothing for as old as the system is, they gave it an above average grade for the system. And you're probably aware of that. So our sewer infrastructure is done well. And those sewer ponds out there, again, they were designed based on the urban growth boundary at that time. And that urban growth boundary has not changed. It has not expanded. So everything that has been designed has been sized according to the urban growth boundary. Now, if we expand that urban growth boundary, then we might have to look at upgrading other infrastructures in, other areas. But everything has been sized based on the current urban growth boundary by professional engineers and paid for by the city of Yam Hill. So I'm recommending that if this is a public hearing for the appeal process, that should probably move forward with the subdivision.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. We will move, is there any additional proponent comments at this time? Okay, we'll move on to opponents. I'm going to run back down through the list real quick. If I run across your name, please go ahead and speak. Jay Dispro?
No.
Andrew, never mind. Mr. Henry. Mr. Edwards?
I spoke.
Dale White?
I'm just here to learn.
Yes, sir. Sherry Wilson?
Already said for now.
Okay. Ingrid?
No.
Unia? No. Daryl?
I spoke already.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Davis?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I represent Yam Hill Neighborhood Association, its membership, and a lot of the residents in town. I want to make it known that Yam Hill Neighborhood Association is not against building. What we are against is the infrastructure that would not be adequate to build these 57 homes. There's been a lot of documentation flying around. We have submitted documentations for November, December, January, February, and March. At the city council meeting, the planning commission. You guys should have a lot of this information in your packets. I know when I looked at it online, I think it was 365 pages. It was huge. But I'd like to draw your attention to a few points that were made that we feel were inadequate or incorrect. For instance, in 2018, AKS did a report for the city regarding the previous 67 homes, 69 homes, whatever the division out there was put in at the high school.
62.
62, thank you. And there were 5 items that were outlined in the AKS report that were supposed to have been done prior to that subdivision being put in. Only 1 item got done. The other 5 fell by the wayside. A lot of that was infrastructure, tanks,
and repairs. So with that said, I had wrote a opposition dated March 2nd, 2022, where it says the Yamhill Neighborhood Association is opposition to the proposed 57 home development up for review. I will now speak of some facts and situations that occurred in the year 2021 during these months of August through October. Whereas the current and only source of water, Turner Creek, had been running so low during these months that the city enacted a level 1, 2, 3, and 4 emergency water crisis notice for all the water users in the city. And I might add, the outside 10 water districts as well. As AKS has already attested to on their presentation, 2015, 2018, 2020, and now 2021 are drought years officially. As in, we all know, 2021 was the hottest year on record for every record ever kept, 104 degrees. With that said, we all are aware climate change is a reality. The hottest years on record was reported last year in 2021. Fact, NOAA and all climatologists report that this condition will continue and increase. Flooding and droughts in many areas are expected. As Turner Creek is the only source of water, a repeat of the previous situation encountered last year is of high probability. Fact is, Turner Creek is considered an endangered species creek. Certain levels of water supply for aquatic life, marine, and fisheries must be continued before the city pulls too much water from the creek as to limit these possibilities. Fact, Turner Creek has 2 senior water right users that during the summer months may submit a requirement to the Water Commission for more water as to irrigate their crops with, and force the city of Yamhill to limit or reduce the amount of water it pulls from Turner Creek for its water system. Yamhill Neighborhood Association will state for the record, the 10 outside water districts and city residents' water is as one and a whole complete water system. With that fact said, AKS's report stating this, the city only uses 25% of the water and the other 75% of the water is not being used, Yamhill Neighborhood Association completely disagrees with that statement. Since Yamhill Neighborhood Association has not been given time and the opportunity to evaluate any new documents submitted as of this submission 3/2/22, as proponent of this proposed 57 home development and protest this situation as it harms the residents of the city of Yamhill and the Yamhill Neighborhood Association. I won't speak of the 10 municipal codes which are being completely overlooked, but I will state them by number for the record. Municipal Code 1.16.070, items A through F apply. Municipal Code 3.08.010 applies. Municipal Code 3.08.060 applies. Municipal Code 3.52.070 applies. Municipal Code 9.04.020 applies. Municipal Code 9.04.080 applies. Municipal Code 10.48.0 010 applies. Municipal code 10.48.020 applies. Municipal code 10.128.030 applies. And finally, as Walt Wendelowski has reported, municipal code 11.08.040 applies. I would hope that the council has read those. If you haven't, then you're missing a very important part of what the city of Yamhill is about and what it's decided to use as its reference point for building. All documents have been previously submitted with regard to the January 12th, 22 cutoff date presented by Walt Wendelowski and has been entered into official public records and should be reviewed in addition to this document dated March 2nd, 2022. Note, documents previously submitted February 2nd, 22 to the Planning Commission and February 9th, 22 to the City Council meeting and March 2nd of 22, which I just read. Hard to speak with this mask on and my glasses, so you'll have to excuse me for a minute while I catch my breath.
Mr. Davis, your 5 minutes is almost up. If you could go ahead and finish up for us.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
If you look at page 219 in your packet, you will find the appeal letter dated 2/18/22 from the attorneys of applicant of Steve J. Ryman. Part 1, as part of the city engineer's analysis, the city engineer noted during the summer of 2021, when the city was in a water rationing, the city had enough water to meet needs of its citizens during winter months. The shortage of water was a result, they state, of summer irrigation. I don't know where they got that one from, because nowhere in the documents for the Planning Commission meeting dated 12/15/21, 1/13/22 did the city engineer's report ever say the shortage of water was a result of summer irrigation. Nowhere in the January 12th, 22 document or Planning Commission meetings on 2/22 did the city Public Works Director ever say the shortage of water was a result of summer irrigation. Thus, during the summer of 2021, when the city experienced shortage of water like never before, there was enough water for domestic use. The shortage was a result of summer irrigation, not household use. I don't know where they get their facts, but their facts are wrong. There's nowhere in any of the meetings I previously stated for the council and the planning commission ever said the shortage of water was as a result of summer irrigation. The city engineer's findings and recommendations are consistent with the testimony of the city's public works director, who noted the city's failure to appropriately manage its water supply during the spring and early summer of 2021 was one of the significant factors that led to the unprecedented shortage of water late in the summer of 2021. Nowhere in the documents for the Planning Commission meeting submitted 12/15/21, 1/13/22 did the city's public works director say the city's failure to appropriately manage its water supply. Nowhere in the January 2012 documents or Planning Commission meeting on February 2nd, the public works director say the city failed to appropriately manage its water supply. And finally, together with the investment of the SOC water dollars and developer will pay will have a substantial positive impact on the city's water supply. Our rebuttal is no amount the builder proposes will offset the deficiencies within our water or sewer system. As a statement from John Christensen of AKS Engineering in the Planning Commission dated 12/15/21 that was asked by Commissioner Corrigan that said, in regards to the water use last summer, did we have additional 5% available? John's reply was no. The second question was asked by Corrigan, so had this development been in last year, would we have run out of water? John's reply was yes. In a council meeting dated 11/15/21, City Public Works Director was asked by Councilor Ichari, what about the sewer system? The reply from Jason Wolford was, currently the state of the lagoons, I would say growth would damage them. So I don't know. To me, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure all this out. As I said, INA is not against growth. We're against building when there's not enough sufficient infrastructure to support the growth. And with that said, YNA would like the council to know that if the council approves the vote to move ahead with the 57 home development, YNA will appeal it to LUBA. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Opponents? Patty Perrin?
I'm gonna sit. I have a back issue tonight. So I am in opposition of this because of the fact that there are so many inconsistencies with HBH Consulting, AKS Engineering. First of all, HBH Consulting stated that regarding our water, the city uses 40%, the outside districts use 10%, and which is 100% at that point. This new subdivision will use approximately 5% because there's no way of knowing exactly how much they're going to use. That doesn't take into consideration the new 62 home subdivision that was just recently put in. When all these estimates were done, that subdivision was not fully sold yet. A few homes were sold. So that means that 62 is much higher than 57. So that means they're going to use a higher capacity water than this new subdivision that they want to put in. So that means at this point, we're at 110% of our water. So that means in the summer, when we don't have a lot of water, somebody either in one of the outside districts is going to have to go without, or people in the town are going to have to go without, or we are going to start being restricted 9 months out of the year because our summers and springs, because they anticipate 90-degree weather this year in May, that we're going to be on such severe water restrictions that potentially nobody's going to want to buy any of these new 57 homes that you're going to want to build, because they're going to know we don't have the capacity for water for you guys, or of the houses that you're building. And for you all to say that with all this money that you're going to generate, that it's going to help the situation, it's only going to help the situation for the city to get money, that they will not fix the situation. I've lived here for 20 years, and for the most part, the 20 years I've heard the same thing, that we have issues with our water. And so what makes anybody in their right mind think that this 57 home to subdivision is gonna make a difference in getting any of our systems fixed. And if you do, you're living in a fantasy world. And that goes for everybody on city council, because I've heard it over and over and over again for the last 5 subdivisions that have been put in, that the SDC fees are gonna, they're gonna pay for this and they're gonna pay for that, but they're not. We are in the same situation that we were in, 10 and 15 years ago. And and I've said this before, I'm a say it like it is kind of person. So yeah, I'm not gonna hold back when it comes to me living in a town that I've lived in for 20 years. And I hear people that have been here for 30 and 40 years saying they want to get the hell out of here because of this kind of situation. And I'm tired of the peaches and cream kind of attitude with city council when they're not taking into consideration the people that live in this town are the ones that are supporting the things that are going on here with our taxes and, our water rates that supposedly they're not making any money on, according to the last city council or the last water committee meeting. But yet, a lot of people that are in this town don't use the amount of water that we're being charged for. So yeah, somewhere along the line, you all are making the money. So, and then the builders or developers say that it's not going to significantly exacerbate the deficiencies, but yeah, it will, because of the fact that it will exacerbate it, maybe not significantly, but to the point where we're all going to have to be on higher water restrictions. So the point that I am going to make with the city, and you need to seriously take this into consideration, is you've got 3 options and 3 options only. You can stop the additional subdivision till we acquire another water source that's going to be sufficient for the entire city and the outside water districts. You can build more and deplete the water to a point where we are on water restrictions 9 months out of the year. And then who in their right mind is going to buy a house or even build here when we don't have water? And I can guarantee that if this subdivision goes through, that I will get a sign made and I will be over in that subdivision and it will state exactly what is going on here. We do not have enough water for you all. Then the third option is you can remove the outside water districts that uses tens of thousands of gallons of water a month. Then we'll have enough for the city and for the additional building that you want to do. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Perrin. That leads us to Carolyn or Robert Buxton. None at this time. Linda?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Angela? Angela Cook? No? And Mr. Lossley, do you want another? You spoke, but this is for opponents.
In the hearing procedures, there's supposed to be time for the asking of questions of everybody. Have we reached that point?
No, we're still working on opponents, sir.
I'll wait. Thank you.
And Mr. Mitchell, did you want another opportunity for opponent?
To rebut?
No, for opponent.
I don't oppose.
Okay. Then we will move on to questions of proponents and opponents from the floor and commission directed through the chair.
Just want to ask the online members if they want.
Oh, I'm glad you remind me of that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
I would like to open up the floor for anybody who is joining us virtually who would like to provide an opponent message to the public hearing. If you would, please unmute yourself, raise your hand, or star 9, and we will call upon you. There's no one.
There's one person.
There is one person, okay, and we will go ahead. Do you have a name?
What's the phone number?
Hello, this is Jenny Morrison. And I live on Adcock Road and also have property in town. And I just wanted to add, I had written statements from the December meeting, and I also wanted to add that we are part of one of the 10 outside water districts, the rural water districts, part of Pleasant View Water. And we are Yamhill community members and, you know, fellow citizens. And we also were under strict, you know, restrictions just as much as everybody else was. And so I just wanted to make sure that the council considers the fact that all of these, you know, 10 water districts are part of the community, part of people who, you know, pay money in town, and kids go to school in town, and we are impacted just as much as everybody else. And we just want to make sure that you're aware that, you know, you can't just consider cutting off the usage of these outside community members, because we are part of Yamhill. And I appreciate all of the thoughtful comments that the opponents have raised, and I'm in 100% agreement with what they've stated. I am definitely not opposed to improvements for the city. I'm a huge fan of Yamhill and have big hopes for it to become, you know, better and a better place for businesses and for living, but this is just not the right time. And again, it's like putting the cart before the horse with putting the houses in before we really have the infrastructure in place. And I'll echo the comments about, you know, just the source of the water. You know, maybe 10, 20 years ago, the infrastructure was deemed appropriate and adequate, but things have changed, the climate has changed, and drought conditions exist. And so we just need to be thoughtful and responsible. And that's what I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any additional persons, Sharon?
I'm not seeing any other hands.
Okay. So at this time we go to questions. I am going to give the proponents or the applicants actually an opportunity to answer some of the questions that have already come up. And then if there's additional questions, we'll go from there. You will get an opportunity to rebut that this is just a.
Oh, okay.
And if there are technical questions that people would like answered, we'd really like to address those now. And then we can deal with some of the rebuttal issues at the end. I see one back here. What?
Yep.
Technical question?
Yep. So in the documents that was provided by whoever, it states that both the developer and AKS had stated that there's conditions on the outside improvements. What are those conditions?
Well, there are, if you look at the staff report that was presented to the planning commission, it's in the record before the city council, there's a list of conditions that have to be installed or of public improvements that have to be built by the developer. One of the PowerPoint slides you saw earlier had on there, there's an extended water line that needs to be installed. There's a new sewer line that has to be installed. And there are several other improvements, but those are all listed in the staff report based upon the recommendation of the city engineer. One of those conditions is to contribute up to $100,000 towards the log jam that would assist. So that's one of the conditions.
No. What it is it states something to the effect, a fee for service in lieu of the improvements. a fee to the city in lieu of the improvements.
That's the, well, there's a term of art there, that what it is, when there's a public improvement required as part of a development improvement. That improvement can either be constructed by the developer, or the developer can pay a fee to the city to cover the cost of constructing that, and the city can then construct that. And there are conditions in there that provide the developer the option to either do it or pay for it. The net effect is the same to the city, because if the developer does it, then it's done. If the developer pays for it, then the city has the resources to do it. And in that context, the developer, the conditions of approval require those improvements. Those funds should be dedicated by the city and applied to what they are paid into the system for.
So why would you not just do it yourself and get it done and make sure that it's done? Into, associated with the new subdivision.
Oftentimes, that's what happens. Because it's sometimes more efficient for the developer to do it because he doesn't have to pay prevailing wage. But oftentimes, cities would prefer to do it because they're trying to coordinate it with other projects and do it together. And so often that's not a decision by the developer, but it's also a decision that is very difficult to make at this stage because we don't have final design documents yet. So once you have final design documents, and then you sit down with the city, you have a conversation, you know what you're going to build, and a decision's made whether the developer is going to proceed or whether it's going to be done by a fee in lieu, and that can be coordinated so that if there's a benefit from some of the improvements that Public Works was talking about earlier, we say, hey, we've got this list of things we want to do, and if those projects can be coordinated and a fee in lieu will advance those other projects as well, then that can be done. But until the final design documents are in place, it's a very difficult decision to make. Kind of like trying to decide what color, it's like picking finishes in your house before you have to decide. Yes, cart before the horse, term we heard earlier.
And that's what we're doing here, is cart before the horse.
We appreciate your opinion of that, ma'am. Thank you. Any other questions?
I haven't heard anything about traffic. Traffic study is good and our roads and everything is gonna be good.
The traffic study, unfortunately, Mr. Mobley from the traffic engineer could not be here tonight. But as part of the package that went to the city, a traffic study was done to evaluate the traffic impact from the subdivision and the traffic roads. There were no issues identified. The staff report to the planning commission and again tonight noticed that the conditions or the requirements related to traffic are satisfied and have been met. So the issue was addressed.
Thank you.
And fortunately, there were no issues that came from that.
Okay, and you can find that report in the council packet on the city's website.
Talking about traffic, so who's responsible to make sure that if there are needs that have been brought up to be fulfilled? Because I live right on Elm Street where the new subdivision is, and there was supposed to be speed bumps put in. That was part of it. That hasn't been done. There was supposed to be stop signs put up, and I had asked about it. It was supposed to be, somebody was supposed to talk to me, or Petra was going to address it. Still hasn't been done. Well, those houses are pretty much sold. So what's the deal?
To answer your question, we can't control what some other development did.
Okay, right.
As to this development, the way the conditions are drafted, the plat can't be recorded until the public improvements have been one of three things: completed, bonded, which means that you have entered into a development agreement. I guess it's one of two things. They're either complete, so done. So the sewer improvements have to be done, the water improvements have to be done, the street improvements have to be done, and any offsite improvements as a result of any of those things also have to be done. And those things have to be completed before the plat can be recorded, which means that it remains one single large piece of property on which homes can't be constructed until those improvements are completed and in place. When you bring the plat to the city goes through a process of reading through those conditions, and it says, is this done? 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 If those things aren't done, you should not be able to get the city's signature on the plat. The only way you can do that is to enter into a development agreement with the city where there's a contract and you agree that you're going to place a certain sum of money or obtain a bond that guarantees performance that the city can draw on to complete the work. Otherwise, you got to complete it. And generally, developers want to complete the work because it's a lot easier than entering into a contract and bonding.
And bonding's typically 120% of the amount of the cost too. So the incentive is on us as the developer to have the work done because it costs us more money to put up a bond.
So there is a checkpoint to requires those things to be done.
Okay.
Sir, I told Mr. Lossley he could go. Please.
The question is to both the city and the engineers relative to a comprehensive audit on the water source. And whether or not, if there is such a thing, whether or not that takes into consideration the seasons. Which would be the dry seasons and in between and the wet season, so that the city can actually know what that water source, Turner Creek, is capable of providing.
I'm gonna let the engineer from HBA speak to that.
Thank you, Rocky. The answer to your question really is I believe it's 3 years ago, we completed a water master plan for the city of Yamhill. And that water master plan is an audit of your water system.
Which was when?
It was done about 3 years ago, I believe, wasn't it?
2018.
So, yes, there has been an audit done of your water system that looks at what your water rights are and how those water rights can be utilized by the city.
But it does show what that Turner Creek is capable of producing.
Yes.
And so that documentation is available.
Yes.
That documentation is something that council and everyone that's in the decision-making capacity has had an opportunity to look at to make a determination.
I assume they have, they adopted the water master plan.
Okay, it was
And
adopted.
so did the health division.
The comprehensive plan shows that there was 826 gallons of water, as I understand it, by comprehensive plan per day of water available
In the comprehensive plan.
in the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, I'm not sure of that.
And the comprehensive plan also says that the water then would meet the needs of the city up to the year 2017.
No.
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 Well, that's what it says in black and white. doesn't it?
2037. It's a master plan that was
The
developed.
comprehensive plan I'm speaking of.
Okay, Rocky,
I just looked at it.
that may be true. You need to realize I did that water map or that comprehensive plan about it.
In the year 2000, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Okay, so it's probably somewhat outdated. The water master plan, I believe, shows that there's enough water in Turner Creek to go beyond the year 2047.
No, 37.
Yeah.
2037 is the number the city engineer.
What's that?
Mike, how about we have the
2037.
city engineer talk about it?
37, you got it
Yeah,
there?
Mike, let's
Okay.
let the city engineer address
Yeah,
that, because he's got it in front of him.
Let's have John talk about it.
Yeah, so Rocky, I think what you're asking for is, we looked back at the last 20 years of the city's water production from Turner Creek. How much water was the city able to draw annually and monthly from Turner Creek? And what we found that in those last 20 years, there were years when the city was able to draw, over 80 million gallons annually. There were times the city was able to draw 120 million gallons annually. If we looked at it on a monthly basis, obviously the peak usage is in July and August. That's when the most water usage is occurring in the city.
Which is the most critical time of the source as well.
Correct. And in every instance in the last 20 years, the city had adequate water to serve this development. Once in the last 20 years, which was in 2021, the city did not have adequate water to serve this development.
And one of the things that I think is important to note in that context that we heard from the Public Works Director is that 2021 was a learning year. The operation of the detention ponds, the water rationing earlier in the year, those are things that would have altered the amount of water available and level of rationing that would have been required later in the year. The city's in a much, without doing anything from an infrastructure perspective, the city's in a much better position today to manage a water shortage than it was a year ago, because it's been there before, it's walked that path, and now it knows how to walk that path more efficiently. What's been presented tonight and what we've talked about, what I think the evidence shows is that the additional infrastructure improvements that will tighten a water line, that will allow an enhancement to the intake, that will address some of the I&I and the leaking that we've heard about tonight, those things will do an additional improvement of the city's water resources. And we've heard about the fact that there was a leak that was fixed that has retained double the amount of water that this subdivision is anticipated to use. So there have been additional improvements beyond that that go beyond the data that you just heard from the audit that took place 3 years ago. And the audit that's been done now that said the water was available.
Okay, but the real issue is, what are we getting today? And if we're not monitoring that water source on a continuing basis, we don't really know what we have.
We did implement stream flow meters this year to more closely monitor what the stream flow is.
In which years?
This year.
This year.
Stream flow monitors.
22?
They went in October of 21.
Okay, well, that doesn't tell us what the water source was doing in July, August, September, and the first part of October.
Understood.
And we have, or I guess really the question would be, do we have any history that repeats what we're now talking about for years prior to 21?
Yes, we have record data for every month of water drawn from Turner Creek for the last 30 years.
Do we have records that show what water we used, or does it show the total capability of Turner Creek?
It shows the amount of water the city withdrew from Turner Creek. Does not show the total capability of Turner Creek.
So because of that missing information, we can do some guessing, but we just really don't know.
Well, but let's take a minute here and listen to what he told us a few seconds ago. Because the missing information that you're talking about is how much more water was available than what the city pulled out. Correct? Because you're saying we don't have a question of what the total capacity was, all we know is what was actually drawn out. So the information that we don't have that you're talking about is the information as to how much more could have been taken. But so, and that information doesn't impact what he has told you, which is that in every single year, save 2021, there was ample water to service this development withdrawn by the city. So the fact that more could have been taken, or the piece of information you're asking about could more have been taken, doesn't impact that piece of information. So what we're talking, those things don't connect. Because if there's more water available, that's better for everyone. And if we can verify that, that's great information to have. And I think everybody would like to have that. And it sounds like the meters are in place that are going to tell us that now. But not previously knowing that more water could have been taken than was taken doesn't impact the fact that enough water was withdrawn to service the project. There was ample supply. That's what he's told you.
What about the citizens that live here? Forget your project. How come we didn't have water last summer? You say there's ample water. The city had all capabilities of drawing ample water.
There is no dispute anywhere that there was a water problem last year and that there was water rationing last year.
And you're guaranteeing it won't happen
And
again.
no one wants that to happen again.
You're guaranteeing it won't have
Nobody wants
any
that.
leaks.
Nobody wants that to happen again.
Yeah, it's all guesswork.
All right, we're going to continue on with questions. Is there any additional questions?
Yeah, Sherry Wilson. I think what, for me, what it comes down to is we've been talking about the city's water as the city of Yamhill, and our outside water districts are not part of that. What's going to come down to is the council is going to have to follow through. If there is water rationing next year and you guys are allowed to build in 2 years from now or 3 years from now, the outside water districts are going to have to be known that they can only have domestic use. You know, out Adcock Road, there's somebody out there that or actually out this way, Morris Valley, there's a big horse community out there. There's somebody that has stables, has a camp. I mean, there's people that have lots of cattle, farm animals. And it's like, that's not domestic use. So it's going to be up to you guys or whoever's on this board to make those choices. Yes, the city of Yamhill has enough water for the city of Yamhill. We're looking at apples and oranges here because we don't want to cut people off for water, but when it comes down to it, if there's not enough water, we're expected that to be surplus water, then it needs to be handled as surplus water. So.
Go ahead, sir.
The unknown is that what water will be in the creek from the rain and nobody can answer that question. Now, I'll just go back to my statement early on, is we gotta have water that's known. You can't have water that you hope falls out of the sky. We can kind of determine what the usage is, but until you get water that you can actually capture, either through a big reservoir, in-ground reservoir, you can't build enough tanks to ensure that, okay? Those 500,000 gallon tanks up there don't hold 500,000 gallons. You cannot fill a tank 100% full. I built water tanks. You just can't do it. You can't lift the water that high to start with. And the pressure, as you get up to a certain height, the pressure becomes too much. So whatever the static capacity is of those tanks, you could have 10 of them up there to maybe and still not have enough water if we get really a drought. So you gotta have water that's known. You gotta capture it either in a big hole in the ground up there. That creek, the city has 3 permits, 3 rights.
Do you have a question, sir? My apologies for
No, a
interrupting.
statement, or a statement, yeah, about the water availability.
We're on the critical questions, I believe, Mayor.
Well, yeah, the question is, you can't ensure the water that we're gonna have coming down that creek. Nobody can do that. You gotta capture it somehow to get into the type of growth you're talking about.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we're going to close the questions portion, as questions are not being asked.
Did we ask the online participants?
This is going to take getting used to this virtual thing. Okay, we'd like to open it up to our virtual residents who may have questions that they would like to ask of the council. Please raise your hand or *9 and unmute, and we will call upon you.
No hands raised, we're good.
Okay. Are there any public agencies present? Okay. There were letters submitted. They were included in the packet. The ones that came in after the date were also included as of tonight. So the letters have been reviewed. This is the proponent's opportunity to rebut before we go to our staff recommendation.
Thank you. I apologize. We've all been here. We've all heard a lot of testimony. We don't want to take a lot of extra time tonight, so I'll keep it very brief. We believe that there has been a lot of evidence submitted to you. You've had a lot of opportunity to read it. You've heard a lot of it reviewed tonight. You saw a lot of it in the PowerPoint presentation. We believe that the evidence in the record shows that there is adequate water capacity to service this development within the city of Yamhill, which is the standard by which you, sitting as judges, as we talked about at the start of the night, have to judge this application. There have been substantial concerns expressed, and we share those. I mean, to be real, they can't sell homes if they don't have water. She's right. So if there's not water, that's going to be a very significant financial drag on them. So there's a very self-interested motive that the information being presented to you is right. The concerns being presented are real. We respect them. This project would never have gone forward had water concerns been expressed by the city. It would have never made it to the stage if the engineering and the careful analysis been done by so many qualified people didn't show that this project could and would be supported by the city. So what we would ask you to do is you consider the one criteria that seems to be in dispute, which is adequate water available? What is the evidence? And are the concerns that are very real and we very much respect, are those evidence? Is there any engineering analysis that says, no, in fact, there's not enough water in the city here? I didn't hear it. I heard very legitimate concerns that we respect.
Excuse me,
No, I'm sorry.
No, I am gonna say
No,
this.
Patty, this is
You
not your
talk-
time.
You tell
Patty
evidence.
Perrin, you need to stop right now, please.
100% of our water is being
Patty
used by the
Perrin.
outside. I'm gonna finish
No,
this.
please stop.
100% by the
Patty
outside water
Perrin.
districts, 40 by us,
Patty Perrin,
5 by the new subdivision over
Patty
there and 5 by
Perrin.
you. That's
please stop.
110%.
You are
of our
asked to
water.
leave this council meeting.
No,
You are asked to leave this
that's
council
too
meeting.
bad. I'm not going to, because they are lying to everybody here.
They can't lie. They have to follow laws and regulations. They can't
It's in
lie.
black and white, Mayor.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think we've heard lots tonight. We thank you for your consideration. We ask you to look at the evidence and compare that evidence against the standards. We ask you to respect the concerns which we believe are real, but we believe that the evidence demonstrates those concerns will be appropriately addressed by the city system and the improvements we made by this project. And we believe that this project will better the water situation in the city of Yamhill as the evidence we believe presented demonstrates. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ryland. Appreciate your time. Staff recommendations, Mr. Wendelowski.
Again, I'm representing the planning commission, if you will. It's the planning commission's recommendation. They denied it, and at this point, it's up to the council whether or not they want to uphold that recommendation. But again, it was the planning commission's decision to deny the application based on the issue surrounding adequate supply of water.
Thank you, sir. All right, then now we close the hearing. The council does not make a decision at this point in time. They do make a decision during new business after we finish with some of the other agenda.
Do we get to rebuttal at all, or
No.
before you close it?
No,
Can I add to what he said?
no, you cannot. My apologies.
I thought we all got that to
You didn't get
answer.
it.
I didn't get a
It
chance.
wasn't for an everybody rebuttal. It was for the proponent, the applicant proponent themselves to rebut. I should have been more clear, and my apologies for not clarifying that.
I just wanted to clarify a couple of things, that's all.
There will be an opportunity for public comment. However, we prefer that you not do public comment during that should have been done during the public hearing. Anyway, the hearing is closed at this time. We will deliberate during new business, and so we will move on from that. And we will open the council meeting for public comment. This is not land use comment. This is public comment for anything other than land use or things that may be addressed on the agenda. Is there anybody interested in public comment? Mr. Disbro?
Not yet.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I know this is you got a long agenda in front of you tonight, so I'll be brief. It's been about a year since the police service fee has been put in place. We have an upcoming budget cycle for the budget for next year. So I request a town hall meeting be provided to the citizens of Yamhill to reassure us that police service fee is required. I did a quick analysis on this month's report, staff report for the police, and my rough figures are that 40% of the police activity took place outside the city of Yamhill. Considering that the service fee is only being paid by rate users within the city, it appears that they are supplementing outside services with other agencies. So that's the reason I am requesting the town hall meeting to discuss those issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Disbro. There was somebody else for public comment, please.
Sherry Wilson. As I mentioned, there was, basically it says there's no unfinished business. And I'm still wondering what's happening with Elm Street and why there hasn't been stop signs or something to slow traffic down. The traffic has gotten ridiculous now that there's 62 homes down there. So with roughly 2 cars apiece. So anyway, I hope that somebody answers my question on that.
I'm glad you asked, and I'm looking for an answer myself. I know that council approved a stop sign not too long ago. Am I
There's supposed to be
correct?
2, last I knew.
Poster up,
Huh?
the poster up for the stop sign.
And
We got it.
my other comment, I'm glad that at least somebody on council asked the question. I find it amazing with as big of an issue as all this is, that nobody has any questions. So thank you for doing so. That's it.
Anyone else for public comment?
It can't be anything to do with land use, anything,
Unfortunately, no.
as long as it doesn't have to do with this.
I'm gonna have to say no, just to keep on target.
Use the word brownie or something.
My apologies, Mr. Mitchell. I know, but
It's a very simple.
I know, but if I even allow for positive, then that opens the door for
But it has nothing to do with this.
poor behaviors.
It has nothing to do with this. It has something to do with the state of
Well,
Oregon.
you can make a public comment about,
I'm gonna make a public comment that the state of Oregon, back in the early 70s,
Common call.
set it up that every city in the state of Oregon has a UGB. We all know what those are. Within those UGBs is the ability for communities to grow. Okay, those have all been set by the state of Oregon. Those were laws created back in the 70s. The state of Oregon has also assessed that there's called a goal 10, that all cities should maintain a 20-year supply of buildable lands. All cities. I just want to make everybody aware of that because the city of Yamhill, once that's gone, we're down to pretty much nothing. I just want everybody to understand that these guys,
Oh,
I can't say that. Didn't make the
I
rules.
got you. I
The
got
state
your
of
back
Oregon
over
did.
here. I'm watching it.
any additional public comment in the room? Okay, we will go to our virtual residents. If you are interested in making public comment at this time that is not land use based, please raise your hand or *9 and unmute, and we will call upon you. With that, we will continue. Public comment. Oh, I want to make note in public comment that, actually, that should have been public hearing, I believe. Melissa Shaver provided an email on February 28th, and Patty Perrin provided an email on March 2nd that is included as public comment and was reviewed in the council packet. Okay, presentations. Amy, woo! Yamhill Downtown Association, Amy Brewer.
All right. Thanks for listening to us, but I'm Amy Brewer and this is Kimberly Hill. And I'm a,
Mayor, can we have them come towards the center? Just the speakers pick up the sound for the online members.
Oh,
Thanks,
okay.
guys. Plus it helps our necks.
okay. Yeah, so I'm Amy Brewer and I'm a teacher and a substitute teacher and a writer, and Kimberly is an artist, and we both live in Yamhill. And so we're with the Downtown Association with the Historical Beverly Cleary Committee. And so we've, it's been going on for now since 2018. So I think it's been the 4th year. But each year in April and May, with COVID, we had to do some crazy different actions, but we've been able to get some grants and actually just minimal small amounts of money for our town to do a community gathering and a celebration and creating a historical event for Beverly Cleary. And then we tie it to literacy. And we have a writing contest and an art contest that goes from Beverly Cleary's birthday, April 12th to, we're now doing the second weekend or the second weekend in May. We think is going to be the annual year event. And right now, this year, the theme, we're going to celebrate Beverly Cleary's character Ribsy by renovating and making improvements to a dog park in Yamhill. And so, which we kind of were just going to do some trails. We get 2,500 in a grant source, and we get, so the little historical barrels around town have Beverly Cleary and history and tied to literacy and all that. And then we connect to schools, and we're trying to do more of that. And then we're the 5 places in town that have that people can walk to. There's a virtual map, and then we're getting more maps this year. And then it goes down through Public Works is where it ends. And we talked last year that this next year that we would maybe make a dog park. And so Kimberly can tell us a little bit about her idea for the dog park, which we don't have all the money for, but you know, if there's people, you know, at certain places, builders and things like that, we'd like to kick money our way for a dog park. It could be fun. There's no water feature. So just so you know, it's pretty simple, but it would actually be looking at, do you want to go ahead and tell that part? Yeah. So, well, how it's going to be looking at the Beverly Cleary.
Yeah, so. I just took some tracing paper and put it on my computer screen when I did Google Maps. Zoomed in onto the park area that's out off of, where's that?
Okay. Highway 47?
Highway 47.
You're talking about Jane Heinrich Park, which is down by Public Service?
Right
behind Public Works.
Okay, yeah. And so this is just, we were walking out there a few weeks ago, and this, about this area where I have the entrance to the proposed dog park, you look this way and you see the historic Bunn farm and home where Beverly Cleary grew up before her family moved out to Portland. And so I thought that was kind of a neat location to have the dog park along that strip that's looking out of the farm.
Yeah. And then this way, right here, this is where, is that Turner Creek? Is that right?
That's Yamhill
Yeah,
Creek.
or the little Yamhill Creek that
Yamhill
comes.
Creek is here.
Oh, yeah.
So
So
the Yamhill Trail is,
and the
walking
Uh-huh.
trail.
And then the trail comes out this way to out past the water treatment plant and all that.
And
And
the reason why it curves here is because it slopes down. So this is the high part.
right, and then here's right over in this area would be the backstop for the baseball, softball fields or something. But it would just be an added connection piece to our Beverly Cleary literacy event, and then to actually bring, I think that tourism and Beverly Cleary is quite a draw. So, you know, I do think it's something that we can continue to move on. And there's lots of little towns in all over the states. And we researched on how to do literary walking tours. And now I believe, I think that it was last year at the meeting, and she said, well, we want to do something with the dog park. And so then I'm like, it all just kind of happened. So, and we now have a bigger project than our grant funds have, but maybe this would be something that we'll be working towards. And so we're not proposing this just yet. This is our idea and our you know, what we want to continue to try to do, and how can we use that land? I mean, how do we have to go forward and ask permission or to work alongside of you guys in developing that little park space area? I mean, we're going to try to work and find grant source monies for that. And we do have a couple of ideas, like the money that we're doing, we're basically just having an event, which we have a bouncy house, we do literacy, we pass out books, we have authors and illustrators, you know, that come to our town during that time, and we promote kids to do writing and literacy, so yeah, that's our goal. And then so if everybody can make sure that they promote that to people, so, and come check us out on the second weekend. It'll be the 15th of May this year, and we're gonna try to do ribs in the park because it's like ribsy, and that's would be through the Larson House. We're gonna have a bouncy house. We're gonna have, you know, a fun event, and we don't know how we're supposed to ask. Can we use, I mean, do we need to ask permission to use the events with the space? Can we just?
Well, I think it's a great idea and I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
And you just go to city staff and they will help you go through the
Okay.
process, and they'll bring it to city council for anything that we might have to approve.
Okay.
And also I met with the YDA last night, the Hill Downtown Association, and the chair wanted permission to use the bouncy house at the Jane Heinrich Park from the city. If there was any liability involved that the city need to be aware of. So we're gonna pass that on to the Public Works Manager, and he will get back to you on that.
Okay. Before, like when we used it at the Larson House, we just had signed waivers. Would that be? Oh, I think that's what it was done before, but okay.
That's something city staff will have to
Okay.
work out with you. Also, I don't know if there's power available down there.
Oh.
And I think that's needed for bouncy houses.
Yeah, they do work on generators, but yeah, okay. Mhm.
Generators
All
work.
right. All right, okay. Okay, excellent. And if you know of everybody, anybody in the, I mean, we're gonna be working on some generous donor opportunities. If you know anybody in the area who would like to promote a wonderful neighborly dog park and space for people to come to, or we found last year that we really just had some really nice donors who were very appreciative of how we use their funds. We're really trying to do the best with it. And I know these link fences aren't that, I mean, they're cheap, but they're not that cheap. And so, yeah, we're just an artist and a writer and another artist. And
That's a big idea.
yeah.
Yes.
And it keeps getting bigger, which is just like the book that Beverly Cleary wrote about our town, is about Emily's runaway imagination and how it just continues on. So.
So when can we expect a flyer or something?
We're talking the flyer tomorrow. And so a flyer should be out, yeah, in the next couple of weeks.
And it will include ways that people can donate to the Beverly Cleary Dog Park?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And we'll get all that information to the Park Council later. Thank you for letting
Any
us have the
questions from the
commercial.
council?
Anybody?
Any council members have questions?
Excuse me, Mayor, would you like that flyer posted on the website?
When they provide it, yeah, they'll provide it to the city. That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for sticking it out with us.
It's nice to get a little bit. The good things about living in a small town community is that we get to use wonderful spaces and enjoy the beautiful views and think about our history, and that we all have ways that we can get along and move forward and make it a fabulous living,
And be neighbors.
yeah, for everyone, because it's a great place.
Thank you, Amy.
Enjoy it.
Okay, Water Advisory Committee. Chair Brian Jensen, are you available?
Good evening. The Water Advisory did meet. We did receive a letter from the city of Hillsborough outlining what they needed in the letter of request or interest from the city of Yamhill. I believe city staff has that. So that would be the next phase that city would need to decide if they want to submit that letter of interest. It does not tie us into anything, but it does keep our foot in the door. So if we do move that direction, so that would be something council would need to consider. And then we're just waiting to hear where council's at on the recommendations we've provided so far. And so we can start planning our educational piece. And that's end of our report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Yamhill Neighborhood Association, YNA. You have a presentation?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So because we've been here many hours, I'm going to make my presentation short. I want to thank the mayor for her opportunity to have Yamhill Neighborhood Association speak and not be controversial. So with that said, I want to thank the council members and everybody here. I know it's a tough job, especially for the council members and the mayor, but you guys chose, you were elected, and so you get the job. And so with that said, YNA wants to make it known that we do appreciate what you do, each and every one of you, including Ichari and Askey, who's online. So thank you very much. YNA's mission statement, and I'll be brief because it's extensive too, but I'll just read 3 lines of it. Our mission is to hold the city accountable for health, safety, and welfare of all the city residents of Yamhill, and to identify and present factual information and documentation to the council, mayor, and other city committees. The Yamhill Neighborhood Association also represents all the residents within the city of Yamhill, so they have the ability of one voice to speak at all the upcoming city council planning and other city meetings. Our newly formed Yamhill Neighborhood Association mission is to bring our community together, to have a voice as one within the city, to be included in the changes that happen and address the concerns within our city, so all our voices are heard as one. We provide a voice for all, not just a few by association. Other than the fact that the statement of my alter ego made with regard to the 10 outside water districts, I would like to reiterate that all the residents within the city of Yamhill as one, a complete water system on the same water delivery system supplied to each user. I don't see it as theirs, ours. It's all one water system. It's all coming from Turnip Creek. It's all one. So with that said, I won't read any of the municipal codes because my alter ego went into that. But what I will say in conclusion is that YNA's only purpose at this and every meeting we attend is to bring factual documents and information to light, not to be an opponent for new home building or other improvements within the city. And our membership meets monthly. We have a steering committee that basically listens to our membership, that basically vents at us, and we try and distill that information into a factual question to ask of the city when it's appropriate. Other than that, we will always state factual and have documents to support our facts. We don't just make offhand comments. That is not YNA's job. Our job is to be factual. And I appreciate you letting me talk, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. We are cruising now. Unfinished business, there is none at this time. New business, public hearing, consider appeal number SDV 21-1 subdivision. I do feel somewhat obligated to council to just make a brief note or statement, and then if you have any questions, council, if you have any questions, we can bring in our city planner, Mr. Wondolowski, to support any questions that you might have in regards to the new development. So we, as a council, are here to approve or deny the appeal made by the developer, whether the application that was submitted is complete and all the development requirements have been met according to the city planning codes. The question in front of us is this: did the developer meet all the required criteria? The city is the responsible party for the water. The city manages the water. The city is responsible for the water. It's the developer is not responsible for the city's water. They do not manage the city's water. It is not their responsibility. With that, do you have any questions?
Do you have anything to say? Tad? Sure.
Mr. Wondolowski,
Yes, ma'am.
do you have anything additional you'd like to add?
No, ma'am. Again, here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. Council's virtual, Council Echari and Councilor Askey.
I don't have any questions, no.
I do, I guess, and sorry, I know I've been pretty quiet, but I'm just absorbing it and making notes, but so if they've met the criteria and are ready to move forward, why is there still a water concern? That's what I don't understand.
What's your question, Councilor Echari?
How can both of those things happen? If they've met all the criteria, so we have the infrastructure to support the development. So then they've met the criteria, but we also have concerns about the water. Those things don't happen together. You know what I mean? That's my question. I also have concerns about the water. So I just don't know how those two things can happen at the same time. Sorry if I'm not being clear.
I could possibly answer that, Mayor.
Please.
Basically, what the planning commission has done is they reviewed the application. They determined that the application met all the decision criteria except one, and that one had to do with public facilities. And in fact, the comment was made at the commission level. It meets 99% of whatever is out there. Their issue focused on the water. And in planning, when it comes to a land use application, to use a baseball metaphor, you have to bat 1,000. You have to be able to answer yes or yes through conditions to every decision criterion.
Great answer. Thank you very much.
So for that, just like from the Water Advisory Committee that I'm on. So for the water, though, because the development would be in our urban growth boundary, we would need to supply them before we sell surplus water to the water districts. Is that correct?
I'm not understanding your question
So
either.
to be able to say that we don't have enough water for the new development, we'd have to say that if we shut off all of our surplus users, we still wouldn't have enough water to supply that development.
Says we still wouldn't have enough water?
Like, wouldn't we have to have that documentation that we do not have enough water if because we're selling to all their surplus users, but our urban growth boundary, don't we have to supply them first before we can say we have excess water to sell to our surplus users?
So my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Wondolowski, is the development needs, we'll say 5% water. It's 4.5, but 5% water. And the city is currently using what I believe to understand is 30% of the water that's produced.
Right.
With the districts using, or the outside users using 70% of the water that's produced. Is that We're on the same page so far?
Yeah.
Okay, so my understanding is if there was a situation where the city's surplus water, which is sold to the districts, is putting the city residents at risk, the council would have to make some sort of decision at that time. Okay? An opportunity or potential decision could potentially be that the council asks the districts to restrict by 1% each. If each council, or if each surplus district restricted by 1%, that would give an additional 10% for the city usage, with 5% going to the new development and 5% going as additional usage to the city residents.
Right.
That's my understanding. If I'm wrong, correct me, but that's kind of my perception of the districts versus the city. We would not want to ever really discontinue.
Right, and I would
usage.
never want to discontinue usage to our surplus users,
No.
but just looking at the numbers and like,
Could we do it?
can
Yes,
we say that, no, we can't have development due to water, but we're selling
70% of our
we're
water.
selling 70% of our water that is supposed to go to our urban growth boundary first. And then the remaining is surplus water. Can we say that we don't have that
Or
water?
do we just adjust accordingly?
Right,
We would have lots of options if that were an incident that it came up. Yeah. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Did that answer your question?
yeah, that's the issue they brought up is water, and it's just technically, they're in our urban growth boundary, we need to serve them first before we can say that we have surplus water to sell to all of these water districts, and I'd never want to cut them off, but to be able to tell somebody that you're in our urban growth boundary and we don't have water for you, we can't really say that.
Yeah.
There's no documentation of that.
Is that a discussion or a conversation that the Water Advisory Committee is kind of having along the way on how, what the options could potentially be if there were that type of event again?
I don't think we've gone that far into it.
Okay.
When we're looking over the restrictions that the new restrictions that, did we get that sent over to legal, Patron? So we're just waiting for that review.
And speaking of the restrictions, I wanted to clarify, we went up to a level 3 restriction.
Right.
Did level 3 restriction include that you could not water personal use gardens in your residence? Did it include that, or was it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
it was-
was,
it was supposed
gardens
to be
was on
revamped.
there.
It was supposed to be domestic use only at that point.
I think it was supposed to be revamped.
So
wasn't
the
it?
restrictions,
The restrictions were,
well,
we
yeah, they
did.
were revamped.
yeah, so.
Yeah, they're over at legal now and then
Okay, then we'll.
for us
then we'll
to
know. Okay,
do
so
the
we'll have
final
that
review.
information later. Okay. Counselors, any additional questions? If there's no questions, then we'll go to a vote.
The only other thing I had was separating that from one standpoint of them coming in and putting in a subdivision, improving the lines out there, the roads, the sidewalks, and that area, Third Street. That's infrastructure building. And then if they don't do it and we vote no, I guess my other question would be, I don't remember who, maybe you or somebody who's on the budget committee. What's the other alternative to that? You know, because they're providing, I understand it's not the whole thing and putting the cart before the horse and all that, but it's a section of it that we're not paying for. So if they don't do that portion of it, we're paying for everything. So budget committee wise, if somebody's here, they could maybe shed light on that. Where does the money come from? Where do we get that from for everything? You know, because now you're adding that in there too, because you're talking Hemlock, Elm, all this stuff, plus the rest of the city, basically the whole city, like they're saying, some of these people were.
It comes from water usage fees.
Yeah, so
if there
basically we
isn't
pay
enough,
for even more of it.
Then they go higher.
So it's kind of a rock and a hard place, I guess, in some aspects, but.
Is council clear on what happens with if we vote to continue the denial of the planning commission, what happens then? Or if we vote to uphold the appeal and allow the development, do you understand what happens with both those
Not to drag
decisions?
it on, but can you just go over it real quickly?
Yeah.
Mr. Wodnilowski, do you want to go ahead and cover that?
Yes. What is presented to the city council tonight is the planning commission decision to deny the application. If you support that, that you are upholding that decision, at that juncture, the applicant has the right to appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals, should they wish to do so. Your alternative is to reject the commission's decision and approve the application, subject to findings and conditions. And I would suggest the original staff report would cover that. And then at that juncture, those who are opposed to the request, once the decision is made, they also have the right to appeal that to LUBA. Also, on the staff report that I provided to the council, I think on the last page, there are 3 options in which you can either uphold with modified findings or reject the commission decision establishing new findings and conditions. Did that make sense with everyone? I want to be sure you're clear that you either vote to uphold or you vote to reject.
Report, did you guys get the report? Staff report?
Attachment A for the staff report is in the packet.
Yeah, it's in there. Oh, in the electronic packet, okay.
Yeah.
I don't have that.
Here's the footies, I believe. Is this what you're referencing? Can you see what I have on the screen?
City council action, yes. Counselor Achari, can you see that on page, looks like 13 of 13?
The AKS report?
No, it is the staff report from the planning commissioner.
I don't see it on the screen. I can pull it up on my phone.
Sharon's gonna put it on the screen for you.
All right, thank you.
Do you see it now, Kay?
Yes.
City council action. Counselor
Yeah.
Askey, can you see the city council action?
Yes.
Would you like a motion, Mayor?
When you're ready.
I make a motion to uphold the planning commission denial adopting findings contained in the planning commission order.
Do I have a second?
Mm.
With no second, do we have another motion? Or are we just still reading? Is that what we're doing?
I make a motion to reverse the planning commission denial and approve the application.
A second.
We have a second. We will go for vote.
May I clarify something, Mayor?
Please.
Okay, it notes establishing findings as to why the application complies with the decision criteria.
Okay.
excuse me, may I just suggest that those findings effectively adopt the staff report written on December 1, 2021 to the Planning Commission.
The findings that went along with that and the reason for denial
The findings from the summer staff report.
from the summary staff report.
Mayor, could I possibly suggest a motion that would probably tie in with Mr. Askey's motion?
Please.
Okay, the motion would be reverse the planning commission denial and approve the application, adopting findings and conditions of approval in the December 2021 staff report to the planning commission.
Askey needs to approve the amendment. Counselor Askey, you need to approve the amendment.
Do I need to make a motion to do that or just?
You made a motion, you need to approve the amendment to your motion in support of what,
Yeah, do I just say I approve?
yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Yes, I approve the amendment to my motion.
Before we vote, could you please verify what we're doing? So are we saying that it doesn't comply?
What you would be doing on this one is that you are reversing the commission's denial. You are approving the application, and in support of that approval, you are adopting the findings and conditions of approval that were established in the December Planning Commission report.
All right, thank you.
Was there a second to the amendment?
Yes, I second
The amendment.
the amendment.
So we're going to vote. Start here.
For the amendment.
For the amendment.
Adine, I.
Askey, aye.
Bichari, nay.
Potter, aye. Our vote is complete. Decision has been made. The order will be provided to the mayor for signature. He said aye.
You said aye.
To the appeal or to the
Okay.
amendment. Thank you.
May I restate what I have reported just for the record?
Yes, please. That would be wise.
For ayes, I have Counselor Levine, Counselor Askey, Mayor Potter, Counselor McMullen. For nays, I have Counselor Achari. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I have Tim Askey as making the motion. Counselor Medina seconding it, and also for the amended motion. Is that correct? Thank you very much.
Nicely done. That was painful.
Yes, thank you, Walt.
Okay, thank you. I understand not sticking around. It's a late night. Have a good evening and thank you for your time.
You as well.
All right, public hearing, consider second reading ordinance number 536, camping on public property. Can we get that put up? You too, John?
Do I need to stick around?
No, wait, John. It's great seeing you, though. Take care.
Your baseball cap.
Wow, we know how to clear a room. It's your money. I'm glad you're here, Officer Van Cleef. Thank you for showing up.
You're welcome. Glad I could be here.
Your presence is always reassuring.
Been listening.
How we coming, Sharon?
I think we're almost there. Okay, that's 793, 792, is that correct?
536.
536. Ah. And we have to have a second reading, so we'll need somebody to read the ordinance.
536, did you want to see the staff report first?
Is that it?
That's the staff report. You want me to move to the ordinance?
If we can, that helps for reading.
And Counselor Askey and Counselor Uchari, see that?
Yes.
Counselor Uchari, can you see that?
Yes, thank you.
Thought we lost you there. I'm glad you're here. Okay. So public reading, consider second reading ordinance number 536. Camping on public property. Counselor McMillan, can you see that well enough to read that for us? No? Okay. Counselor Askey, can you can you read that well enough with your eyesight? Then, I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying that it's really
I think
far
so.
for us.
Yeah. Is it just is it also like the whereas, the entire thing, or just the
Nope, just the initial ordinance reading.
City of Yamhill ordinance number 536, an ordinance amending City of Yamhill Municipal Code, Chapter 5.08, general offenses by adding a new section 5.08.115, camping.
Thank you. Second reading is complete. Oh, this is helpful. Yay. 536 has been read, ordinance 536. Public hearing considering first reading with emergency and adoption of ordinance 537, storing vehicles or objects on street. Can we get that one up?
Did we need to have a vote on the second reading?
Yeah, so you'll, if you wanted to finish you can table the ordinance, or you can take a vote on the ordinance.
On each one?
Yes.
Can we do them all 536, 537, 538?
You may also do that.
Okay.
But go ahead and just state that you're tabling the vote till you finish the other two hearings.
We will table the vote for the ordinance number 536 and incorporate it into all three public hearings on these ordinances. Number 537. Counselor Achari, can you read 537 for us? If you can read it, okay?
I sure can. City of Yamhill ordinance number 537, an ordinance amending City of Yamhill Municipal Code, Chapter 6.12, traffic parking regulations by adding a new section 6.12.025, storing vehicles or objects on streets.
Did you find that? I don't remember what that said about that.
You want to hear what?
Did you define it? I don't remember what it said about that. Storing on streets as in like the actual street.
Storing vehicles or objects on streets. So Chief Graven could probably, actually.
I'd have to look at the ordinance.
Okay, but when storing vehicles on streets, typically that's because the streets aren't necessarily defined. So saying, putting this ordinance in will help our officers enforce code enforcement, which would include people who store old vehicles on the streets that may impede traffic? Is that,
I believe the current statute is 72 hours without being moved longer than that.
okay?
But I'm not, again, without reading the statute. I'm not sure what.
Yeah, that's accurate. It's actually posted in there as well.
I only asked that because people were asking the definition of it or like what exactly that meant. So if they are listening, I just wanted to clarify that. I think there was some worrisome about that.
So I'll just read it briefly. I won't read the whole thing, but no person owning or controlling any vehicle or any other object shall cause or permit it to be stored within the roadway of any street. For purpose of this section, a vehicle or other object shall be deemed stored after 5 consecutive days that the vehicle has not been moved, a minimum of 25 feet, and each day thereafter during which it remains in place shall be deemed a separate offense. So that would be somebody that you ask them to move their derelict car and they move it 2 inches and say, I moved it.
Yeah.
It gives meat to their.
The only reason I brought that, up is because there are some citizens that have the ways those stuff's parked, which Officer Travis probably knows. They were concerned more about what that entitled exactly versus if it's the street. So I was just trying to clarify that if they're on here, then it's clear that it's the street and you have to move your car. Versus like, lately classified as a roadway, I guess.
It also sounds like it extends the time from 72 hours to 5 days.
After the first warning. Is my interpretation.
You don't have to come back as often, I guess.
Okay, so we did the reading and we will table this for an all-inclusive vote when we are completed with each ordinance. All right, the next one, number 538, overnight public hearing considering first reading with emergency and adoption of ordinance number 538, overnight sleeping in vehicle.
City of Yamhill ordinance number 538, an ordinance amending City of Yamhill Municipal Code, Chapter 6.12, General Offenses by adding a new section, 6.12.045, overnight sleeping in a vehicle ordinance.
And that completes the first reading for ordinance number 538. Can I get a motion on all 3 public hearing requests?
Make a motion that we adopt. Yes, would be the new ordinances.
H.R. second.
And can we get a vote, please?
Adina,
Heskey, aye.
H.R. aye.
Potter, aye. All right, consent agenda. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 council meeting minutes.
Father, you're skipping over the adoption of resolution 793.
I did. My apologies. Did I skip over that one there too? Consider adoption of resolution 793, procurement and contracting policy. That's actually a big one. I should have not left that one out.
Yeah.
Oh, I lost it.
It's over here. It's over here,
Oh,
sorry.
okay, no, that's okay. Oh. This is the thing?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
There might be something exciting we don't want to miss.
Thanks for sticking it out.
It's like Survivor. Like the end of the movie where they have that little thing at the end.
Credits.
Yeah. Okay, can I get a reading for?
And this is a resolution, so it doesn't require any.
Oh,
You're welcome.
I'm so grateful.
Lesser process.
So I need a motion to adopt resolution 793 procurement and contracting policy.
I make a motion that we adopt resolution 793 procurement and contracting policy.
Second.
H.R. second.
HR two.
Michael and I.
Nicole and I. Potter, aye.
Heskey, aye.
H.R. aye.
Potter, aye. Consent agenda, we have 4 council meeting minutes completed. And I believe that catches us all up. Yes, 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 yes.
For city council.
And then after they're approved, they'll all be posted on the website and be available to everyone. Excellent.
Can they be put in numeric order? They're all over the place.
I will check the way the website organizes it. It just puts them just the way they are. So I will check and see if there's some way to try to make those order, because it bothers me too.
So the consent agenda also includes financial statement from July 2021 to February 2022.
Would you like a motion, Mayor?
Yes, please.
I make a motion to approve the regular city council meetings for October 26, 2021, December 22nd, 2021, November 3rd, 2021, February 9th, 2022, and the financial statement July 2021 through February 2022.
Excuse me, Mayor, don't you approve the consent agenda in all one motion?
Typically we do, but she obviously wanted to read them all, so. Okay. That works. And McMullen seconded? Yes. Councilor McMullen? And can we get a vote, please?
Again,
Saskia,
HRI.
All right. Department reports. Now, we had an extensive department report printed out for us in our packets. Did everybody get a chance to review and read that? Was there any questions regarding the report put out by staff?
I have one announcement.
Please.
Between then and now. The City of Yamhill Facebook page, the official, is now been posted.
Yes. You'll send us a link to that so we can.
You can accept my request.
Everyone.
Everyone.
I read everything.
Is there any additional reports that you would like to present, Patron?
No, but I'm happy to answer any questions from the report if there are any.
Thank you. Is there any reports that would like to be made by police chief or public works manager?
No.
We're tired. Okay, is there any responses to any public comment that anybody would like to make, council members?
I would, yes.
Please.
So I just want everyone to understand, I know I've explained this before and regarding what we do with the activities of our time and where it is spent. We patrol the city limits when we receive calls for service, such as probably if you notice Travis headed out the door pretty quickly. So when there are calls for service, I answer to our community, which is the residents of Yamhill, but as well the surrounding areas. So when we get medical calls for suicidal, calls for menacing with weapons, domestic violence, motor vehicle crashes, and different things, I want us to be responding to those because we are the closest available assistance and we have the proper equipment for medical calls and so forth. So I just want the council to understand the reasoning for why we do those things and the interagency agreements that we have with the sheriff's office, with the Carleton Police Department. A lot of the calls that we get, and I'm not sure where, I've seen irregular facts and figures that have been presented in the past to you from individuals that are not sometimes even close to accurate, such as tonight. So our patrol is done within the city limits. And we do get calls for service of the different natures. We also have times where we are outside of the city limits. Our school resource officer works for the Yamhill Carleton School District. He makes home visits that occur outside of the city. We do follow-ups for cases that we get within the city limits. We also have court time. So if you're looking at that report that I have done, you can see justification for all those things, and the percentages of our work is within the city limits, not even close to what percentage was indicated to you. So I just want everyone to understand that. We also have an officer that is on our major traffic team or multi-agency traffic team that does details, and there's some traffic stops that were done when he was functioning in that capacity that is outside of the city limits. But he responds to all of the major crashes. He's trained as a drug recognition expert and is on that team. And that team has also come into the city limits at certain times, including they were here the first part of the school year doing their operation as well. So that interagency thing we do together. And I just want you all to understand the importance of why we do what we do, and that our patrol is our community within the city limits. However, I'm not going to direct my employees to not go outside of the city limits when they could render aid to somebody as the closest unit. If that is a concern, please let me know, but I have a hard time justifying saying no to them doing that. So we did have, as we always do, a very busy month. As you saw, there's the contacts that we had and the information there. But if anybody has any questions from this forum, please address it to me and let me know. Other than that, we've been busy as usual, and I appreciate everybody's support there, and feel free to talk to me anytime if anybody has any concerns regarding our activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Graven. We are very much in support of what you do and how you do it. Your officers are very professional in what they do, and we thank you for that. Any additional comments from anybody? Staff, counselors?
I sent out an email, but I received word that we received the congressional grant. So the planning study for I believe it's the treatment plant. So I just got word this morning.
That is really exciting. And I think that's for the pipeline that goes from the treatment plant to the storage tanks. So for that entire, like, several thousand line of piping.
Was that just a grant, or would we have to match that, or sort of pre-matching or anything?
I want to say a 20% match. I sent out an email.
It's like 46,000.
Yeah,
Or something is
I
the match.
sent out an email that has all the details in it.
Sorry.
It's okay.
It was 300 pages. We'll give you grace.
Yeah. If you check your email, all the details are in there, and if you don't find it, I can resend it.
The match is about 46, if I remember correctly.
I think that's what we had talked about before.
We did.
Yeah. It's been.
Yeah, they just signed the bill. She's the representative from Senator Merkley's office said really late last night.
Oh.
So, yeah, here we go. This bill includes the funding of the treatment plant to reservoirs planning study project. The treatment plant to reservoirs planning study project would evaluate how to replace the line from the treatment plant to the existing reservoirs. This project would install 26,520 feet of new 12-inch PVC pipe starting at the treatment plant and headed southeast to the existing finished water reservoirs. This project replaces relatively old pipe in place and increases capacity to the reservoirs should the city ever want to run the treatment plant at full capacity. A planning study, so this is what the grant is for, planning study is needed to evaluate the best alignment for replacing the transmission main. We were awarded 192,000. The total amount of the project is 240,000, with the city providing a 20% match of 48,000. And we submitted that grant application on May 14th of 2021. And she said that I should be contacted within the next couple of months from an agency on instructions.
So as Mr. Lossley put it, this would be the comprehensive plan to making that project happen.
It's a planning study, is it? I'm not sure.
So it's just a study, it's not actually.
It's not an actual, it will get us to where we can implement the project.
We have to do the study before we can actually do the job.
It's a lot of money for a study.
Yeah, all the engineering and fine details to be ready.
The first memory budgeted that last time, or we talked about, our budget committee did it, I can't remember, it was 46,000 match.
It's within the water SDC fund, so.
Do we allocate that when we know that we've got it? We're
Did you
gonna,
say the water SDC funds?
Yes,
Were you talking water or wastewater line?
that was water.
Okay, I misunderstood, but it's from the, okay. All right.
that just means we're moving forward on replacing that line, which could potentially have a lot of leaks in it,
Yeah.
which could potentially add more water to what we're providing.
It says treatment plant to reservoir, so that would be water treatment plant, correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I thought. Yes, okay, thank you.
I'm not sure it's adding water, it's taking water away from the leaks because it's a pressurized line. So any breaks in the line, you will be losing water.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mayor comments, there are none at this time. Announcements, statement of economic interest, the SEI is due April 15th. Excuse me. City Council goal setting retreat is being scheduled in later March. City Council executive session will be scheduled later in March also. So keep those in mind and we'll get together for those. And anything else before we adjourn? Adjourn. I'm not gonna do it. That scared me last time. We are adjourned at this time. Thank you very much.
Okay, since we're adjourned, can I ask about when somebody's gonna put a stop signs in? I mean, I keep saying it and I never hear any response, so.
Here, I can respond to that. We're just waiting on some signs, Sherry.
Sherry?
Huh, I'm grabbing my watch. Thank you,
Some
Jason.
science, is that what you said?
Signs.
Signs.
They're deep in back order.
Okay. Well,
Holy cow.
hopefully before summer, I guess. So I really hope you guys listen to, I mean, I'm glad that you, Marcy, you brought up the fact that, yeah, it's gonna be up to the city council to make the choices on about the water, you know, and I, like I said, when
Bye.
we've got vineyards out here.
Can I ask you?
I write down though. I
Using
talked to the mayor.
as much water as they can, and there's no